devices, choose Spectrum.
Streaming now on BritBox.
You're suggesting we travel to San Francisco.
What is it you actually do? Same thing we did in the war. Codes, recognize patterns.
People don't just walk in here and solve crimes.
We've done it before.
Well, bully for you.
Sarge told me we were going to solve a murder.
Sign me up. The Bletchley Circle, San Francisco. Only on BritBox. Start your free trial today at BritBox.com.
Stream the premiere episode on demand.
Hypothetically, just spitballing here, if you wanted to bribe the current president of the United States, I think the simplest, cleanest way to do so would be just to throw money at his businesses. So just think of that for a second. Now, a story today, a pretty remarkable report from the Washington Post. It looked as if the Trump International Hotel here in Manhattan was all set to take a loss in the first quarter of this year. In fact, Trump hotels in blue areas of the country have been struggling. And then came a last-minute visit to New York by none other than the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. This information comes from a previously unreported letter from the hotel's general manager obtained by the Post. And here's the most telling part. The Crown Prince didn't even stay at Trump's hotel. But according to the general manager, due to our close industry relationships, he wrote in his letter, we were able to accommodate many of the accompanying travelers. So in short, the head of a foreign state has his entire retinue stay in a hotel he doesn't stay in that just happens to be a Trump property that indirectly lines the president's pockets. Such transactions have fueled criticism and even lawsuits accusing the president of reaping revenue from foreign governments in violation of an explicit constitutional prohibition of the practice. To talk more about whether this behavior is explicitly unconstitutional and what we know about what's going on at the Trump Hotel, I'm joined by the co-author of the Washington Post piece, reporter Jonathan O'Connell, and Zephyr Teachout, who is running for Attorney General of New York and a Fordham law professor. Jonathan, let me start with you. So what information do we have about what happened here?
Well, we know the Saudi prince came to New York on a very publicized visit to America in March. We know that some members of the people traveling with him stayed at the Trump Hotel instead of the Plaza Hotel where the prince is staying. And we know that that stay was lucrative enough for the Trump Hotel that their revenue went up by 13% for that quarter instead of dropping as it had done in the previous 2 years.
Well, just to be clear here, this letter, I mean, they don't have shareholders, right? It's a family-owned business. My understanding of the letter is like kind of a little like the earnings call that you would do if you did have shareholders, right? So he's saying, like, when you want to look at, like, what kind of quarter we did, like, we had this big boost because the Saudis rolled through and spent a lot of money, basically.
Right. The specifics here are that the hotel is managed and branded, obviously, by President Trump's company, which he still benefits from financially. The units in the hotel are mostly owned by independent investors. So every so often they get a report from the general manager about how leasing is going and how the hotel is performing.
Right, so this was that letter to them. Zephyr, you've been very vocal about this stuff. Is this constitutional?
No, it's blatantly unconstitutional. On its face, the Constitution prohibits taking emoluments, profits, advantages from foreign states. And by the way, the Constitution even mentions princes, that federal officers cannot take something of value from a prince or a foreign state. And the reason for this is really obvious. We cannot have federal officers, and especially the President of the United States, who is getting cash in his pocket from foreign governments while we are making critical foreign policy decisions about trade and diplomacy.
And war and peace in the Middle East, and whether, we're going to let the Saudis invade Qatar, for instance. Jonathan, one of the thoughts I had here, and Zephyr, I want to come back to you in a second. One of the thoughts I had here was just how much we don't know, right? Like, let's say I wanted to bribe the president, and I was a Qatari emir. I mean, you could just, like, get 40 rooms in a Trump hotel for 2 weeks. And my question to you is, like, would we know if someone was doing that?
That's an interesting question. The president's company donated $150,000 to the Treasury at the end of 2017, which they said was the profits from the major business at their hotel company. We don't know anything more than that. We don't know who the people spending that money are, other than a few published reports about major stays at mostly the Trump D.C. hotel. We don't know how much each of them spent. We don't know who exactly stayed there. So there is really quite a bit that we don't know, and actually we may learn more about the business at the Trump Hotel in D.C. because of this lawsuit that the attorneys general in D.C. and Maryland have already filed and which is now proceeding.
Yeah, what do you think of the lawsuit, Zephyr?
Oh, it's an incredible and essential lawsuit. But of course, the New York Attorney General and New York should be in that lawsuit so we can also learn about what is happening in New York with New York businesses. The other stories from the Trump International Hotel that we don't know, the other stories about foreign money going through Trump's businesses that we don't know. And actually a week after Donald Trump was elected, even before he took office, I sounded the alarm and said, look, it looks like Donald Trump is set to violate this essential clause of the Constitution.
Okay.
Worked with an incredible legal team, and 3 days after Donald Trump took office, we filed the first emoluments lawsuit. But the New York Attorney General needs to be a part of this because we know there's unconstitutional behavior, but only from public reports. We don't have the tax returns. We don't know all the financial flows.
But we do have now, Jonathan, is that law, this is sort of somewhat uncharted constitutional territory.
Absolutely.
And what did happen, I mean, for a lot of reasons, we haven't had like a person like this be president of the United States before, but the federal judge, at least at the district level, said, yeah, you've got standing and you can, this is a real case that could go forward.
Right, and I think the particularly tough news for the Trump organization out of that court case is that the judge seemed to define emoluments, which are the president is banned from accepting, very broadly compared to what the Department of Justice wanted, the way they defined it. So even payments made to the president's company at a market rate for a service that they're paying, a market rate for, could be defined as an emoluments under the judge's definition. And the judge has been fairly clear, and if you look at what he's said about the case so far, that a competitor in New York, that another state may have standing if there is a hotel or a business in their jurisdiction or in their area that is conducting this type of business.
Zephyr, you're nodding your head to the competitor point.
I was nodding my head to the whole thing. The only thing I would frame slightly differently is that Donald Trump's lawyers had a radical and cramped and bizarre definition of emoluments, which basically said it's only an emolument if it's a bribe. It's only an emolument if it's in exchange for some presidential action. So the Judge Massetti's ruling defined emoluments in a way that I and others have been pushing for now 20 months, but it's a common sense way to understand it.
Right.
This prohibition is against money coming in from foreign governments, and you don't have to prove that there's some kind of quid pro quo.
All right, Jonathan O'Connell and Zephyr Teachout, thank you both. Still to come, the ongoing horror of the Trump family separation scandal, why a federal judge, slammed the Trump administration for suggesting that somebody else take over the work of reuniting families. And next, what even is Great Britain anyways? That's tonight's Thing 1, Thing 2 right after this.
With the new Chase Ink Business Unlimited card, I get unlimited 1.5% cash back. It's so simple, I don't even have to think about it. So I think about mouthfeel.
I don't think about the ink card. I think about nitrogen ice cream in supermarkets all over the world.
I think about the details. Fine. I obsess over the details.
Think about every part of your business except the one part that works without a thought, your ink card. Introducing Chase Ink Business Unlimited with unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase. Chase for business. Make more of what's yours.
CoQ10 is the #1 cardiologist recommended supplement for people taking cholesterol-lowering statin drugs. Qunol, with 3 times better absorption than regular CoQ10, has the #1 cardiologist recommended form of CoQ10. Qunol, the better CoQ10.
You eat healthy, take statins, but still struggle to lower your LDL bad cholesterol. You also have heart disease, and fear a heart attack or stroke could strike without warning, pulling you away from everything you love. Because with high LDL, your risk of a heart attack or stroke is real. Now you can reduce that risk with Repatha. Repatha plus a statin dramatically lowers your LDL bad cholesterol by 63% and is proven to significantly drop your risk of having a devastating heart attack or stroke.
Do not take Repatha if you are allergic to it. Repatha may cause serious allergic reactions. Signs include redness, severe rash or itching, swollen face, or trouble breathing. Most common side effects include runny nose, sore throat, common cold symptoms, flu or flu-like symptoms, back pain, high blood sugar, and redness, pain, or bruising at the injection site.
Don't let a heart attack or stroke come between you and everything you love. Tell your doctor you're ready to lower your LDL and reduce your risk for real with Repatha.
Pay no more than $5 per month with the Repatha copay card.
Booking a flight at the last minute doesn't have to be expensive. Just go to Priceline. It's the best place to book a flight a few days before my trip and still save up to 40%. Just tap and go. For the best savings on flights, go to Priceline.
As a physician, the bulk of what I do is deliver babies. The experience is minimized by the fact that I'm hiding my teeth. Instead of covering with my hand, I will put the mask on. My smile was no longer there.
When Richard came in for his consultation, he didn't want to smile. He was embarrassed.
At Clear Choice, we want patients to absolutely walk out of here saying, this was the best decision I've ever made.
He reassured me very professionally this can be done. Clear Choice is the future. Between the technology of being able to 3D map out my bone structures and then to custom make the implants and put it in knowing that it can stay there for the duration of my life. Why would I want to have dentures? When it was all done, I had my miracle.
And that's what he wanted to give back. He wanted to be able to smile.
I'm glad I get to smile again. It changed my life.
Morning Joe speaks truth to power.
He is destroying the Republican Party for years to come.
With access to the people who matter.
Step up. It's not about your dad. It's about the country.
From the Senate floor.
Why isn't there more of a sense of urgency about Puerto Rico?
To the Oval Office.
You can't be a counselor to the president and not comment.
Through every hallway in the Beltway.
I said America will be strong. We will survive this.
Morning Joe, weekdays 6 to 9 on MSNBC.
Thing one tonight, International Geography Lesson, United Kingdom Edition. I'm sure you're familiar with the region, but it does have a lot of names and they can get pretty confusing. This in the yellow circle is Great Britain, also called just plain old Britain, made up of 3 countries, England, Scotland, and Wales. And this red circle shows the United Kingdom, the UK for short, and more formally, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. It's made up of Great Britain, that's England, Scotland, and Wales, plus Northern Ireland. And finally, you have the British Isles, encompassing everything in this blue circle. That would be England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, plus, of course, the Isle of Man and many smaller islands. Okay, got all that? As I said, it can be confusing, and any of us, myself included, could get mixed up. But any of us is not the President of the United States.
People call it Britain, they call it Great Britain, they used to call it England, different parts. But the UK, great respect.
And that thing too, in 60 seconds.
I'm Ray, and I quit smoking with Chantix. I tried cold turkey, I tried the patch, they didn't work for me. I didn't think anything was gonna work for me until I tried Chantix.
Chantix, along with support, helps you quit smoking.
Chantix reduced my urge to smoke. I needed that to quit.
When you try to quit smoking, with or without Chantix, you may have nicotine withdrawal symptoms.
I'm on the clock. What you want? Some wheels?
Aggression, hostility, agitation, depressed mood, or suicidal thoughts or actions with Chantix. Serious side effects may include seizures, new or worse heart or blood vessel problems, sleepwalking,
it's on the way.
Or allergic and skin reactions.
I'll get back to
which
work.
can be life-threatening. Stop Chantix and get help right away if you have any of these. Tell your healthcare provider if you've had depression or other mental health problems. Decrease alcohol use while taking Chantix. Use caution when driving or operating machinery. The most common side effect is nausea.
I can't tell you how good it feels to have smoking behind me.
Talk to your doctor about Chantix.
Donald Trump owns a golf course in Scotland, so you'd think he'd have a decent understanding of where that is. But just last month, his White House had to delete this tweet announcing the president was leaving the UK to go to Scotland, which is in the UK. Weirdly, Trump has had a really tough time with UK geography. He once told the Wall Street Journal, quote, I mean, you don't hear the word Britain anymore. It's very interesting. It's like, nope. Last month, he told Piers Morgan, you have different names. You could say England, you can say UK, you could say United Kingdom. So many different, you have so many different names. Great Britain. I always say, which one do you prefer? Last month's NATO trip, he told The Sun he prefers England.
You don't hear the word England as much as you should. I miss the name England. You understand that? I miss the name England. I think England is a beautiful name, and you don't hear it very much anymore.
So true. You just don't hear England anymore. Last night, Trump was in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, which he pronounced Wilkes-Barre, and he brought up the UK again.
I have great respect for the UK, United Kingdom. Great respect. People call it Britain, they call it Great Britain, they used to call it England, different parts. But the UK, great respect.
Great respect. Hey, what can you ask for? I mean, nobody elected this man to get the names of places right.
And I'm greatly honored to host this lunch, to be joined by the leaders of Cote d'Ivoire, Ethiopia, Ghana, Guinea, Nambia, Tanzania, China, Belgium. Is a beautiful city. We are also praying for the people of Puerto Rico.
Listen, Tony Prince again? The Tony Prince.
Heroin overdoses are surging and meth overdoses in Nevada. And it's great to be back in Missouri. You cherish Utah's gleaming rivers. This Russia thing with Trump and Russia. Jerusalem is not just the heart of three great religions. Nobody says it the other way. It has to be Nevada, right? And if you don't say it correctly, and it didn't happen to me, but it happened to a friend of mine, he was killed. And God bless the United States. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Managing my type 2 diabetes wasn't my top priority until I held her. I found my Traceba reason. Now I'm doing more to lower my A1C. I take Traceba once a day. Traceba controls blood sugar for 24 hours for powerful A1C reduction.
We've been counting down to his retirement. It was our Traceba reason. He needs insulin to control his high blood sugar, and at his age, he's at greater risk for low blood sugar. Traceba releases slow and steady and works all day and night, like the body's insulin.
Traceba is a long-acting insulin used to control high blood sugar in adults with diabetes. Don't use Traceba to treat diabetic ketoacidosis, during episodes of low blood sugar, or if you are allergic to any of its ingredients. Don't share needles or insulin pens. Don't reuse needles. The most common side effect is low blood sugar, which may cause dizziness, sweating, confusion, and headache. Check your blood sugar. Low blood sugar can be serious and may be life-threatening. Injection site reactions may occur. Tell your prescriber about all medicines you take and all your medical conditions. Taking TZDs with insulins like Traceba may cause serious side effects like heart failure. Your insulin dose shouldn't be changed without asking your prescriber. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing, fast heartbeat, extreme drowsiness, swelling of your face, tongue, or throat, dizziness, or confusion.
I found my Traceba reason. Find
Quite
yours.
a digital.
Ask your healthcare provider about Traceba. Covered by most commercial health insurance and Medicare Part D plans.
Now I'm gonna tell my mama that I'm a traveler. I'm gonna follow the sun. Now I'm gonna tell my mama that I'm a traveler.
Transitions, right under control.
How we see, how we look. Great eyewear is all about both. Thoughtful design. Precision optics. Styles people love. At Zenni.com, we make it all stunningly affordable. So you can see the world the way it's meant to be seen. In perfect focus. Zenni.com. Eyewear for everyone.
Come on! Somewhere in the Caribbean, there are 5-star luxury resorts where it's all included, all unlimited, all the time. Sandals, where love is all you need. Because everything else is included. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
Not a bed. It's a high-tech revolution in sleep. The new Sleep Number 360 smart bed. It intelligently senses your movement and automatically adjusts on each side to keep you both comfortable. And snoring? How smart is that? Smarter sleep. To help you lose your dad bod. Train for that marathon. And wake up with the patience of a saint. The new Sleep Number 360 smart bed from $9.99. Smarter sleep will change your life.
When we break news,
We have breaking news on the president's legal battle.
we're merely breaking the surface of the story.
We can report that the president will nominate Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Because beyond those two words
We're getting a first look at images of girls who have been separated from their parents.
is where the details lie,
All are now out of the cave, alive and safe.
where the facts are buried. And the only way to uncover the whole story
We have news just breaking tonight.
is to dig deeper than anyone else.
So that is the scene at the victory party for Diane Black last night. Pretty bleak, as she trailed by double digits in her bid to secure the GOP nomination for governor of Tennessee. You see, Congresswoman Black had sacrificed a lot to run for statewide office, resigning from her chairmanship of the House Budget Committee and giving up her seat in Congress. Yet all for naught. Last night she lost definitively, coming in third behind two local businessmen. And with that, Congresswoman Diane Black became just the latest House Republican rejected for higher office by their own party's voters. Like Congressman Raul Labrador, who gave up his seat to run for Idaho governor, rejected. Congressman Evan Jenkins, who ran in the Republican West Virginia Senate primary, rejected. Congressman Luke Messer of Indiana, rejected in his home state's Senate primary. His competition in that race, Congressman Todd Rokita, also rejected. Republican primary voters have even rejected congressmen who were just trying to keep their seats, like Mark Sanford of South Carolina and Robert Pittenger of North Carolina, both ousted in their primaries this year. Congress in general is massively unpopular, has been for a long time. The average approval rating wallowing around 15%. And Democrats are beating Republicans in the generic congressional ballot right now by about 7%. And with 7 Republican members of Congress rejected in various primaries this year, House Republicans are also being shunned by their own party's voters. The midterm elections, with the balance of power in the House and the Senate up for grabs, are just 95 days away.
You know how painful heartburn can be. For fast-acting, long-lasting relief, try doctor-recommended Gaviscon. It quickly neutralizes stomach acid and helps keep acid down for hours. Relieve heartburn with fast-acting, long-lasting Gaviscon.
Getting to know you, getting to know all about you, getting to like you, getting to hope you like me.
Know how your DNA connects you to the world. Get 30% off each kit at 23andme.com or a local retailer.
I want to get a bar put in over there. Do you know any good contractors? Yeah, I might. Nice! Give me a bunch of quotes, check the reviews, and verify the credentials and qualifications.
You can't expect your neighbors to do everything HomeAdvisor can. So just ask HomeAdvisor.
And the wolf huffed and puffed.
Like you do sometimes, Grandpa?
Well, when you have COPD, it can be hard to breathe. So my doctor said.
Symbicort can help you breathe better, starting within 5 minutes. It doesn't replace a rescue inhaler for sudden symptoms. Symbicort helps provide significant improvement of your lung function. Symbicort is for COPD, including chronic bronchitis and emphysema. It should not be taken more than twice a day. It may increase your risk of lung infections, osteoporosis, and some eye problems. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition or high blood pressure before taking it.
Symbicort could mean a day with better breathing. Watch out, Piggy.
Get Symbicort free at saveonsymbicort.com. If you can't afford your medication, AstraZeneca may be able to help.
Your insurance rates skyrocket after a scratch so small you could fix it with a pen. How about using that pen to sign up for new insurance instead?
For drivers with accident forgiveness, Liberty Mutual won't raise their rates because of their first accident.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
From up here, we may seem insignificant. The choices we make, inconsequential. But the truth is different. For when it comes to our life, our health, every choice we make matters.
Joe, how do you like that DirecTV Select Double Play deal from AT&T?
Hey, I love sports, but there's no ESPN.
There's no CBS Sports Network.
And there's no NBC Sports Network or Fox Sports 1.
All Spectrum TV packages include all those popular sports channels and more. DirecTV Select is missing them. And there's no Weather Channel.
That's one empty bundle. That's their thing, but it sure isn't mine.
For the deal you really want, forget AT&T. Choose Spectrum.
Responsibility for reuniting immigrant families, calling the administration's delays in getting still separated migrant children back to their parents unacceptable. The Trump administration, get this, wanted the ACLU to take the lead in family reunification, even though it was this administration that separated those families in the first place. But then nonprofits have been trying to clean up the government's mess on this very issue for months, as our own Tremaine Lee found out back in June when he traveled to Arizona and talked to the Florence Project. That's a group that provides free legal services to detained immigrants.
It's very empty. It's very isolating, physically and emotionally. The detention centers are placed out there for a reason. It is very intentional.
Annabelle Barraza drives this dusty highway 4 times a week, 70 miles into the Arizona desert to the infamous Eloy. It's a jail run by a private prison corporation. Now it houses undocumented immigrants. 15 of them have died in as many years due to suicide or inadequate medical care.
What's the toughest part about making this trip?
The toughest part, not being able to help them in the way that they want you to help them.
Annabelle works with the Florence Project. They call themselves legal first responders for immigrants, some who have been separated from their children by the U.S. government. Many don't know their rights. They often don't have money for an attorney and don't speak English. Annabelle's here trying to help them.
Was this a good day or a not so good day?
I don't think it was a good day personally. Just from the conversations and the reactions that I had and the tears that I had, I definitely think I would need to decompress a little bit and see how I can help further.
These parents were in tears.
Yes, they were in tears.
There are more than 3,000 undocumented immigrants imprisoned in Arizona on any given day, and the Florence Project is the only nonprofit providing free legal aid to them.
What we're seeing right now is completely unprecedented in terms of the family separation.
Laura St. John is the Florence Project's legal director.
A 2-year-old can't tell you their mother or father's name. It's just mommy and daddy, right? A 2-year-old can't tell you, well, how does mom spell that name? And then we have to be able to track this person down and identify them, and it's extremely difficult.
Is there any legal recourse for those family members who've had their kids ripped away from them?
There is no public defender in immigration removal proceedings. So if you're being deported, you might have the right to have an attorney, but only if you can pay for one. And that means that, at least in the facilities that we work in, approximately 86% of the people here will go through the process without an attorney.
What kind of outcomes are they facing when they're going against these trained lawyers, the American government, a court system that operates differently than the American criminal court system, right?
Overall, the system is extremely difficult for people, and there are a lot of people who have potentially valid claims who, simply for lack of a lawyer, are not able to explain themselves well enough to be able to prevail on those claims.
Not only are they worried about themselves and their case, but they're also worried about what's going to happen in the case of their children.
Annabelle is the first point of contact for many of the 7,500 immigrants the Florence Project helps each year. She's a lifeline.
What's going through their mind? I mean, they've been separated from their child, they had one phone call. What are they thinking?
You know, one of the clients said, you know, this isn't justice, but this is how it is.
The latest government numbers on separated families, 572 immigrant children remain in government's custody across the country, not been reunited. With me now, Lee Glurnt, the Deputy Director of the ACLU's Immigrant Rights Projects. I gotta say, when you look at that package, right, so Florence Project, they're not as big as the ACLU. You guys are a big national organization. But even the ACLU, is it as crazy as it seems to me for the federal government, who separated the kids, to turn around and go to a federal court and say, we think the ACLU should put everyone back together?
Yeah, I mean, it was a stunning submission by the government. They basically were saying, look, you go do it and you find the parents and tell us when you find them. I mean, we have a lot of support, but we have nowhere near the support the U.S. government has. And the government, worse, is sitting on information that could help us, and they haven't given it to us. They have phone numbers of parents. They haven't given it to us. we got addresses for them. Sometimes it just say a city with 700,000 people. That was the address they gave us. They're telling us to get us the phone numbers, they need 8 more days. I mean, that's terrible.
Okay, I'm confused here. So we've got, we had 2,500, the numbers get confusing, around 2,500. The vast majority have been reunited, right? I mean, as a documented fact, that has happened.
And we're thrilled about that.
Yeah, I mean, 1,800, somewhere in that ballpark.
I think without this judge's ruling, we may have been looking at 5,000 kids separated by now. Wow. And now we're down to 500, but those 500, as the judge said, are critical. We're talking about them being orphaned if we don't find these parents.
Okay, so we got 500 left. We're down, we got 2,000 reunited, we got 500 left.
Right.
The vast majority, my understanding, of that class of kids who, again, they're waking up every day in some detention facility, in some foster care facility, in some child detention center facility. The vast majority of parents have been deported.
Exactly.
And the government's saying, look, I don't know, they're in Honduras somewhere. Is that like?
They're telling us, they're telling us what country they're in, and that's basically. And then yesterday they gave us addresses for some of them, but they're barely usable. And we said, what about the phone numbers? They said, oh, we didn't realize you wanted the phone numbers. That's helpful. We'll try and get you phone numbers in about 10 days. I mean, why not just go through the 400 files and find the phone numbers in one weekend? We've offered to send our paralegals down there. In one day, they'll get through those 400 files and see how many phone numbers there are.
What did the judge think about the government's idea that you put everybody back together?
Yeah, the judge was crystal clear. The government separated these children. These children are in real harm. It's the government's responsibility. And he said, I want a point person from the government, and I want that person to submit a plan, because right now I thought I was getting a plan from the government. I've got nothing.
There's also real concern about the conditions these kids are in.
Right.
We've had a number of reports. ProPublica has been reporting about Southwest Key, which is one of the biggest contractors.
Right.
It's a nonprofit, but it's got, I think, hundreds of millions of government contracts. Arizona Central yesterday, another Southwest Key employee arrested for sex abuse at a shelter, court documents show.
Right.
I believe that's the third, if I am not mistaken, from that particular employer. Are you concerned about that?
We've been concerned about conditions in facilities housing children for a long time, and that's exactly why you wouldn't want to put more children there. The government is suggesting that, well, even if we reunite them, maybe we're going to detain a bunch of them. You don't need to detain families, a mother with a 2-year-old. There's plenty of ways to ensure supervision. The Trump administration got rid of a way that was 98% effective that the Obama administration had created at the end. And now they've released a lot of people, fortunately. But there's still a lot of people detained, and those people need representation immediately because they're in danger of being deported.
Here's the thing that's so crazy to me. Play out the logic here. So let's say the 400 children that are currently in U.S. custody being cared for by the U.S. taxpayer, first of all. Right? I mean, what is the government's plan here? If the government's plan is, well, we deported the parents, we're not reuniting them, like, what are you going to do for the kids? You're going to raise them until they're 18? You're going to give them to some family like we're in Argentina during the dirty wars? Like, what's the deal?
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, from the government's just self-interest, they ought to be finding these parents.
Yes, why?
That's less energy, less taxpayer money than trying to find a place for these children. I mean, otherwise we're just stuck with these children, and not only that, the parents and the children want to be together.
And they have to now. The judge said they have to.
Absolutely.
Lee, you've done incredible work on this. Thank you for making some more time on this Friday night. That is all this evening. The Rachel Maddow Show right now with Ari Melber. Talk about someone who's doing a lot of work. In for Rachel, good evening, Ari.
Good evening. It's not work if you love it. Let's play too. Ernie Banks over there. Have a great weekend, and thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. As mentioned, Rachel does have the night off. We have a lot of interesting stuff to get to tonight. There is so much happening on Friday in the news.
A blistering critique came through today of the Trump administration's attempts to reunite hundreds of the families that separated along the border. Chris was just reporting on this. A court order does require it, and we will be joined tonight by reporter Jacob Soboroff to explain what set that federal judge off today. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is back at his own golf club in New Jersey. He's going to stay there for 2 more weeks. We learned that from Rudy Giuliani, who now claims Trump will, once and for all, announce whether he's doing that much-discussed interview with special counsel Bob Mueller, who himself was busy today wrapping the first week of the trial of Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort. That's not even the only legal news. You remember all that drama over the first publication to ever release the now infamous Trump-Russia dossier? It was the website BuzzFeed. They made the choice. Lawsuits ensued. Well, late today, I don't know if you've heard about this yet, but it's potentially significant. News broke there is a judge who's actually going to greenlight fascinating fact-finding in this case. BuzzFeed will be able to pursue legally James Comey and other key federal officials to depose them under oath. All of this to address some of the questions we've all been wondering, like how did that dossier make its way not only into the federal government and the FBI, but when exactly did President Barack Obama learn about its explosive contents and the allegations about a man who would replace him, Donald Trump? And so we begin looking at this Steele dossier right now. All of this, of course, comes from when the FBI announced that it was releasing some records between the agency and Christopher Steele, the author. 71 pages come out, and the former British intelligence officer is actually not referred to technically by his name, but by the letters CHS, Confidential Human Source. Now, the trove of documents detail reports of payments to Steele, mostly redacted. You can see there, that's a lot of white space. There are two exceptions. The final page is information from a document from February 2016. Of course, that's long before the Russia probe began. It says Steele was, quote, verbally admonished by the FBI, and that Steele acknowledged the admonishment and even signed a document noting it. Now, from this excerpt, which obviously is tantalizing, we don't have the wider context of why. The other item comes from page 2 of these new documents. It concerns the FBI's decision to terminate its relationship with Steele. Guess when? Just days before the 2016 election. Now, this document says Steele had confirmed his relationship with the FBI to an outside party, and that he was a source for a, quote, online article. In addition to revealing his relationship with the FBI, Steele also revealed information that he had provided to the Bureau. So take it together, because this is pivotal stuff. On November 1st, 1 week before the election, Steele informed by his FBI handler the nature of the relationship between the FBI and Steele would change completely, and that it was unlikely the FBI would continue a relationship with him. That article was published online on October 31st. It was written by someone who has broken a lot of news in this story, who I'm sure you've seen. If you watch Rachel, you've seen him talk to Rachel. It's David Korn, the Mother Jones Washington bureau chief. He also interviewed Steele for the story. And the headline is right there. A veteran spy has given the FBI information alleging a Russian operation to cultivate Donald Trump. That was before the election. It was the first media account to reveal the existence of the memos that now, of course, have become a big deal. They are known as the Steele dossier. They allege, among other things, that the Trump campaign had organized collusion with the Kremlin. Quote, this is something of huge significance, way above party politics, that intelligence officer told Korn. That would be Steele. Quote, I think Trump's own party should be aware of this stuff as well. The official confirmation of the FBI investigation into the Trump campaign's contacts with Russia was not confirmed for many more months. It's even easy to forget that, because it's the kind of big information that's the center of American politics, so we all talk about it. People who don't even follow the news know about it. But let's be clear, it was not until March 2017, many months later, that's after the inauguration, after the election, when FBI Director James Comey went down to the Hill where he was testifying and said, yes, there was an open probe. By that time, the FBI had also initiated a separate but related investigation, and that has now broken much into public view, much more, because the break came with this very curious indictment of a woman named Maria Butina. Now, she was suspected as an unregistered agent of the Russian government, that she was trying to mount this covert influence operation through a conservative group, a gun rights group in the U.S. Tonight, the same reporter who had the breakthrough scoop about the Steele dossier has a new and obviously provocative question. Did alleged Russian spy Maria Butina cause a leadership shakeup at the NRA? And the backstory here is an FBI dive prior to the fact of Trump becoming president into Russian attempts to influence the NRA, which itself is a weird story. Now, that counterintelligence investigation focused on a man who also has become more known, one of these oligarchs. His name, Alexander Torshin. He's a Russian banker. He was a politician there, and he is a Putin ally. His protege is Maria Butina, and she founded a gun rights group in Russia called the Right to Bear Arms. So you have a Putin-connected oligarch attached to a gun rights platform, and that is very odd. Stephen Hall, the former chief of Russian operations for the CIA, explains it thusly. The idea of a private gun ownership is anathema to Putin. So the question is why? Why was a pro-gun campaign being hatched by a leader in Putin's own party? The answer put forward here that Putin was reaching out to attract the NRA, specifically over to Russia. This is part of what the Justice Department alleges, and again, the case is only beginning, but what they allege was a covert influence operation, torsion, cultivating ties with the NRA all the way back in 2010. He and Batuna become NRA members, which is weird. They begin attending the NRA yearly conferences in the U.S., which are about domestic politics. They meet with top NRA officials. They cultivate these friendships. The pictures tell the story. In fact, 2 times they got senior NRA officials to go to Russia. All expenses paid, of course. 2013, the president of the NRA, which if you follow politics, you know is a big job and something of a conservative star among people who care a lot about gun rights, which is a lot of people in America. His name there, you see him, is David Keene. He goes to Moscow. The NRA president introduced by guess who? Yes, Maria Butina. And then they declare no 2 people were more alike than Russians and Americans, so they had to work together.
Maria, thank you very much. It's a great honor for me to be here today, partly because over the course of the last 3 years, I've hosted your Senator Alexander Torshin at the National Rifle Association annual meetings in Washington. The NRA has 5 million members. We work with everyone, both in the United States and, of course, here in Russia. There are no peoples that are more alike than Americans and Russians. We're hunters, we're shooters, we do all the things, we value the same kinds of things, and we need to work together.
There are no more peoples more alike than Americans and Russians. I mean, it's fine if you want to bring people together with commonality, but that's not usually what you hear from highly conservative political operatives in America, certainly not back then, 2013. Fast forward to December 2015, the middle of what is, of course, the pre-presidential campaign season. Keene, as well as other top NRA leaders, include future NRA President Pete Brownwell, and they head back to Russia. This is their second visit. They go to Moscow. Butina facilitating a meeting with the CEO of a private Russian gun manufacturer which produces a sniper rifle identified by the Pentagon not for domestic use or hunting, but actually as a threat to American soldiers. The NRA leaders treated to a tour of that facility and a chance to, of course, shoot some guns on site. The NRA reportedly spent $30 million to support Trump in 2016. And on the one hand, they do typically support Republican nominees. But here's what you need to know. That was triple the amount they spent on behalf of Mitt Romney just 4 years prior. And then in January, you get this report in McClatchy, the FBI investigating whether Russia used this relationship with the NRA to illegally funnel foreign cash into the gun rights organization as part of an effort to support Trump. So ever since Maria Butina was arrested and charged with her conspiracy on behalf of Russia, the NRA has consistently declined to comment to all kinds of sources and all kinds of publications on this association with what is now an indicted Russian spy facing those allegations. Now, journalist David Korn is raising this question about whether the arrest of Butina caused a leadership shakeup shortly after at the NRA. Korn writing that on May 7th, the NRA released a curious press release declaring Oliver North, who has his own history as a key player in the Iran-Contra scandal, but is also a standing NRA board member, was now, quote, poised to become the new president. This changing of the guard and how it happened was odd, he writes. Earlier that day, Peter Brownell, then finishing his first term as NRA president, had announced he would not seek a second annual term. For 15 years, the NRA leadership had followed a pretty specific pattern. We're getting deep into the bylaws, but it's actually quite important. So here's how Korn explains it. An officer elected by the board to serve 2 consecutive annual terms as second vice president, then 2 as first vice president, and finally 2 as president. But the Brownwell to North transition broke this process and precedent, puzzling many NRA watchers. It even puzzled the incoming president of the NRA himself.
Colonel North, your reaction to being elected to as president of the National Rifle Association?
Well, it's an unexpected privilege. I'm grateful for the unanimous support of the board. I did not expect that this was going to be happening at this annual meeting, but as soon as I get everything in order in my family, because this was very sudden, I'll be back to take that gavel.
Those kind of on-camera interviews are useful. It may have sounded like a basic question, but we learned from Oliver North's own mouth this was unexpected. This was sudden. He was getting ready to adjust at the last minute. And then you have a true state secret that was unknown, at least to the public at that time. 2 weeks earlier in April, FBI agents clad in their tactical gear were raiding Butina's apartment where they arrested her. Now we know that from these reports, and Korn asks, did that FBI investigation of Butina lead to NRA President Peter Brownell's decision to, in the words of Oliver North, suddenly step down? He had, of course, after all, interacted with Butina in Moscow 3 years earlier, and the NRA could easily shed light on this. We would love to bring you their side of the story. Any comment, anything vague, anything. But they are declining to comment tonight. Same for Brownell. Korn reports he's not taking calls. I'm joined now by the reporter at the center of the action, David Korn, Washington Bureau Chief for Mother Jones. David, we always learn a lot from you. I appreciate you joining me this Friday night.
Thanks for having me on the weekend.
Heading into the weekend, you have a lot in this story. As you know, Rachel has been on many pieces of this story for quite some time.
Yeah.
What has advanced through what happened with the NRA? And let me start with the biggest question. I don't need to save it. Reading between the lines of your reporting, are you saying you have reason to believe there is another indictment coming pursuant to the NRA case?
I'm not saying that. I don't know that, and I don't make any predictions on what the Mueller investigation is going to be or the Butina investigation, which is separate. We keep being surprised. And the big picture here, Ari, is that we keep learning new things that we didn't know a week ago, 6 months ago. And so on all these investigations involving Michael Cohen, Trump, Russia, and of course the NRA investigation. But it was, as you noted, it was very puzzling when the NRA went through this leadership change. I remember getting the press release, and it was weirdly put. Oliver North is poised to become NRA president. Not that he's been chosen NRA president, but he's poised to become NRA president. And as he put it, it was news to me, and no one could really explain why this very hierarchical organization that had very strict rules of secession in terms of its leadership would all of a sudden pluck a guy out who didn't see it coming and make him president of the NRA when he wasn't prepared to be. And then only recently, with the Butina case, did we learn about this FBI raid. And remember, her partner, romantically and politically, was a guy named Paul Erickson, who was an NRA activist. And he had been working with her to infiltrate, penetrate, make connections with people in the NRA and other conservative groups. So if she were raided, as she was, one would expect him to know about it and word to start filtering out, which could have caused a tremendous panic within the NRA and might have led to anyone being connected with Butina to be scared. I'm not sure about an indictment, but to be scared of being caught up in this criminal
certainly
case.
Exposure.
Yes, and Peter Brownell was very much involved, having gone, on trips that Butina organized and having been one of the NRA highest officials that she had cultivated.
When you look at the NRA, which has a lot of seasoned political professionals, people may disagree with their views on gun rights and access to guns, but these are people who have been around Washington, made it to the top of one of the most powerful organizations around. Yeah. How can one benignly or positively explain the complete idiocy or ignorance that would be required to think that an authoritarian country would have a vibrant private gun rights movement?
There's so much puzzling about this. In the book I did with Michael Isikoff, Russian Roulette, we wrote about the Butina case before it became a criminal case, and we noted that she had shown up at NRA events and other conservative events like CPAC, the annual get-together, and was really trying to make friends with some of the leading officials. In fact, one fellow who said, by his own admission, he's in his 60s, doesn't have a lot of hair, has a little bit of a punch. He says, I'm not used to young, attractive women coming up to me and saying, will you be my Facebook friend? Can I Snapchat with you? And he thought there was something odd and weird that Butina and this Russian legislator named Alexander Torshin kept showing up, and that the NRA that he was a part of was embracing this pair of Boris and Natasha. And so there were some people who thought this was odd, but certainly if you watch that video of David Keene, if you watch the video that was made on the Peter Bernal trip in 2015, these guys are really having a good time. They're getting off making these Russian connections and
so
seem
you're saying there was some suspicion about a Snapchat honeypot.
Yeah, I think some people saw it that way, but it's clear at the time, and it was clear in the 2016 campaign, that whoever was masterminding this, whether it was Torshin or somebody else, they had a pretty good insight into American politics. If you want to work your way into, influencing Republicans and conservatives who are now, controlling all arms of government, do it through the NRA.
Right.
And
well, what did Warren Zevon say? Bring lawyers, guns, and money?
Yeah. The you know what has hit the fan. One of my favorite songs.
Family show.
It's not,
Family
it's not
show,
rap.
David.
Family show. But I give them credit. I think this was smart. It was also done out in the open.
You're getting at the fact that they were quite adept at infiltrating specifically the conservative wing of American politics in the way they did it, and that gives, of course, insight into what they're accused of with regard to the Trump campaign, with J.D. Gordon, a Trump advisor who sits at the nexus of guns and Trump. It's so much fascinating stuff that the final question I have for you we haven't even gotten to yet, which is the way you continue to figure into this, and you're a reporter that people have known for a long time. Your name and reporting came up in the very controversial debates over the wiretapping of Carter Page and whether your material was underlying material for that lawful wiretap. Today we see in the little parts, and I shared this with viewers at the top, the little parts that we do glean from what's come out with Steele is the FBI assertion that they stopped working with him because of what he told you and what you published. Your response, sir?
Well, I think we knew that already. We certainly reported that in the book, Michael Isikoff and myself. So it's not a surprise. It confirms that. And, the point I would make is that when I talked to Christopher Steele in the very end of October 2016, he was talking to me very reluctantly. He was scared. The material that he had found, connections, allegations between the Trump of interactions between Trump and the Russian government, frightened him as a veteran counterintelligence officer, and he had taken his material to the FBI and had been working with them, but he felt this information needed to get out in some way before the election, that the American public had to be told this. So
FBI, David, had the FBI publicly confirmed that on the record before?
No, not at all. They were, in fact, they were doing everything. They were doing everything they. Excuse me?
Do you know why now?
Well, the reason is the conventional reason, that it was a counterintelligence operation that was ongoing, and Jim Comey and others have explained that they don't make that information public even when members of Congress ask. Now, Steele's position was that he thought there was enough connections, enough to worry about without knowing the full picture, that the FBI should have worked harder, at least the U.S. government, someone in the U.S. government, to make more of that available to the public before they cast votes on November 8th. So that's why he talked to me. When he did that, the FBI said, okay, you're now too much of your own, of a lone wolf doing this on your own, and we don't want to work with you anymore. So, but I think he knew that this would get him in trouble with the Bureau, but he thought it was important that the public knew something about this.
It's fascinating, and it's a story that obviously has gotten deeper, and you've been there from the start. I do appreciate your time tonight, sir.
Well, always good to be with you. You know that.
Thank you, David. We turn now to more news on this potential legal quandary for the president. I'm going to be joined in just a moment by the Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter who's actually tracked Donald Trump's business dealings as closely as just about any reporter. Now, looking at those legal questions, This reporter began this day with a scoop of his own about a notable spike in revenue at Donald Trump's New York hotel. After 2 years of sagging revenue, that hotel suddenly gets 13% more in the first quarter. The hotel's general manager says the spike was from, quote, a last-minute visit to New York by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. Those hotel stays by members of the Saudi prince's entourage were enough to boost the revenue for the entire quarter. Now, it's not clear from the Trump Organization or the Saudis whether that government paid those rooms. The question here is whether the president's violating what is known as the Emoluments Clause, a constitutional bar on taking payments from foreign governments, and the issue of whether they're meant to curry favor. Last week, of course, a case got a green light for a lawsuit against the president over this very allegation. Now, after the Washington Post published this story about the spike in revenue, the Attorney General of New York announced her state also probing the same question. Is the president violating this ban? Joining me now is David Fahrenthold, political reporter for the Washington Post. What's most important here?
The big picture we're seeing here is that we really don't know, even 18 months into this, the Trump presidency, we don't really know even the basics about what foreign governments are spending money at the president's properties, what foreign governments are actually using Trump's businesses to pay Donald Trump, who then is overseeing U.S. relationships with those countries. This letter from the GM at the Trump Hotel in New York indicating this big group of Saudis came in and it boosted their revenue for the whole quarter, that's just an indication of what's possibly out there that we don't know about.
You obtained this letter, but it was sort of put out by the Trump business side themselves. They put themselves on blast. Was that do you know why they did that?
No, I mean, this letter was meant for investors in the Trump Hotel in New York. So the Trump Hotel is owned, the individual hotel rooms are owned by outside investors. And so this letter was meant for them to sort of reassure them. As we said in the story, it had been a couple of bad years at that hotel. 2016 and 2017, the numbers had gone down. This was the general manager saying, hey, things are looking up again. This quarter has been good, and I'll explain why. Basically saying, I'm working for you. I'm trying to make the situation better. Here's how we did it this time.
Do you think we should infer something negative about the Trump Organization's refusal to provide actual accounting of what they're donating back?
I mean, I don't really know what we can infer from it. The thing you can tell from the way they've reacted to these questions is that the Trump Organization is a private business, and it had always been a very private business. It had always kept as many details about its operations as it could secret. And so even now that Donald Trump is in the White House, the Trump Organization, which is still owned by him, still seems to see itself in the same light. We're a private business. We do what we want. To the degree that there are legal requirements for us to disclose things about our business, we'll do it, but we won't go beyond that. The idea that there might be some sort of need for transparency above and beyond what the law requires to reassure people that the president wasn't sort of conflicted between his business's interests and the public interest, they don't see that. They haven't responded to that at all. And so we only know about his business dealings with foreign governments kind of through media reports, through sort of dribs and drabs here and there.
Right, and through often what you've been able to obtain by old-fashioned shoe leather reporting. David Fahrenthold from the Washington Post, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have a lot more in this show. We will be right back.
At Ace, kids are some of our favorite customers.
How far does this spray? Why would anybody want to tape the ducks? How do you unglue?
There's nothing better than helping kids. That's why ACE supports Children's Miracle Network hospitals.
This Friday through Sunday only. Donate $5 to your local Children's Miracle Network hospital at your neighborhood ACE and get the 5-gallon bucket plus 20% off almost anything that fits inside.
ACE is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
You eat healthy, take statins, but still struggle to lower your LDL bad cholesterol. You also have heart disease and fear a heart attack or stroke could strike without warning, pulling you away from everything you love. Because with high LDL, your risk of a heart attack or stroke is real. Now you can reduce that risk with Repatha. Repatha plus a statin dramatically lowers your LDL bad cholesterol by 63% and is proven to significantly drop your risk of having a devastating heart attack or stroke.
Do not take Repatha if you're allergic to it. Repatha may cause serious allergic reactions. Signs include redness, severe rash or itching, swollen face or trouble breathing. Most common side effects include runny nose, sore throat, common cold symptoms, flu or flu-like symptoms, back pain, high blood sugar, and redness, pain, or bruising at the injection site.
Don't let a heart attack or stroke come between you and everything you love. Tell your doctor you're ready to lower your LDL and reduce your risk for real with Repatha.
Pay no more than $5 per month with the Repatha copay card.
Getting to know you, getting to know all about you.
No Hunger DNA connects you to the world. Get 30% off each kit at 23andme.com or a local retailer.
We do whatever it takes to fight cancer. These are the specialists we're proud to call our own. Experts from all over the world, working closely together to deliver truly personalized cancer care. Expert medicine works here. Learn more at cancercenter.com.
I wouldn't accept an incomplete job from anyone else. Why accept it from your allergy pills? Most pills don't finish the job because they don't relieve nasal congestion. Flonase Sensimist is different. It relieves all your worst symptoms, including nasal congestion, which most pills don't. It's more complete allergy relief, and all from a gentle mist you can barely feel. Flonase Sensimist helps block 6 key inflammatory substances. Most pills only block 1, and 6 is greater than 1. Flonase Sensimist.
Buying a used car doesn't have to be this way.
No, stop it.
At North Hollywood Toyota, all of our used vehicles go through a 160-point inspection, so you get a reliable vehicle at the perfect price. Our used car selection is unmatched. We've got over 200 used vehicles in stock. Check out our full inventory online.
Then he got up on the horse and was like, "Yeehaw! I got a good savings for you." So, yeah.
Shop with us today at NorthHollywoodToyota.com.
Did you know that top-tier gas from Arco can help maximize your mileage? I did, but I grew up around cars. So we're taking those MPGs and going to the Grand Canyon.
Check out the view.
It's a dinosaur.
Wow. Whoa! I guess mules eat grass.
Arco, quality top-tier gas for less.
Wherever forces clash.
Some incoming rounds have been whistling past.
Wherever leaders assert their power.
They not only stood next to each other, they stood up for each other.
Wherever heroes rush to the scene or voices shout to be heard, our journalists will be there, bringing the world into focus.
Paul Manafort faced more tough witnesses today. Trials always come down to evidence, to physical and testimonial evidence. Now, if you've seen Rachel's coverage of the Paul Manafort situation, you know there's very strong physical evidence against Manafort. The receipts, the wire transfers, the ledgers. Today, the case focused more on the unpredictable piece, this testimonial evidence. People who implicate Manafort, but who've also been given immunity for their testimony. Now, Judge Ellis, who's been tough on lawyers in his court, ruled for Mueller that 5 witnesses do get immunity, but their names would be released before they even took the stand. That's even if they never take the stand. And today, for the first time, one of them, Cindy Laporta, testified. She is one of Paul Manafort's accountants, and in light of what she has confessed to on the stand, well, it's quite clear why she wanted that immunity deal that the judge approved. Remember, yesterday's revelation was from Manafort's longtime bookkeeper testifying that he went something into a financial turmoil in 2015. That was before he offered his volunteer services to Trump. And today it was Manafort's longtime accountant backing up that same story, testifying Manafort's income dropped conspicuously after 2014, and that despite repeatedly asking Manafort if he or his family had any foreign accounts, Manafort would say no. Now, this is around the time of the day when Paul Manafort's wife, Kathleen, left the courtroom. Reports are that she was dabbing her eyes, that she was visibly upset. And it's what happened next when Cindy Laporta, the first witness to testify with immunity, took the stand. And this could be, if you look back at this trial, everything that happens before the trial is speculation. When we look at what's actually going on this week, this could be the turning point. Laporta alleging that in September 2015, this was when Manafort was in financial trouble, she gave him an estimate of the taxes he owed, and she was told Manafort couldn't pay it. Quote, Rick, that's Rick Gates, who's also expected to testify, said it was too high. Manafort didn't have the money. Manafort's solution, Laporta testified, was to inflate the amount of a loan, which would then reduce on paper his reported income, and thus his income tax, and in turn what he owed the government. In other words, tax fraud, tax evasion, which, as a professional involved in this business, Cindy Laporta did understand. So then you have Mueller's prosecutor ask, what was your understanding at the time of whether that was appropriate? Laporta replies, it's not appropriate. And she confessed she went along with it and helped Manafort falsify those critical documents. I could have refused to file the tax return. That would have exposed the firm, Laporta's employer, to the risk of litigation. I could have called Manafort and Gates liars. But Manafort was a longtime client of the firm. I didn't want to do that either. She added, quote, I very much regret it. And that is immunity witness number one. There are 4 more people who have immunity who are ready to testify, plus the star witness, Rick Gates. We turn now to our in-house experts, Josh Gerstein, a senior White House reporter for Politico and an analyst with us, and Joyce Vance, a former federal prosecutor, as well as an MSNBC analyst. They both kept a close eye on the case. Josh, you were in the courtroom today. How damaging was Cindy Laporta's testimony, and could you glean at all from the mood or the jury or the faces whether she was hurt at all by the fact that she was in on the bad things she was talking about?
I didn't get a sense that she was hurt. I mean, they knew that she had immunity, but she did seem like she was someone who was along for the ride here. Unlike even Gates, she didn't have any direct financial interest in these offenses that were being alleged. She was just accused of essentially having accepted what her clients wanted her to do rather than resisting them. But I thought, Ari, this was by far the most damaging day yet for Manafort in the trial. I felt like some of the other evidence earlier in the case about the tax issues, that he was spending way too much and transferring money in from overseas, it's still a little murky. You know, if his tax returns were off, how much were they off? By 100,000? Is that a lot on $1 million? Does that amount to fraud? I don't know. But the stuff we heard about today seemed like very specific transactions, not only tax fraud, but a lot of very damaging evidence on bank fraud also came in through Cindy Laporta today, where she was specifically involved in apparently forged documents being turned over to banks. And it just sounded like the kind of conduct that is very intentional and very hard to explain away.
It's fascinating coming from you, having been there every day in court, because, Joyce, I think Josh is referring to something that prosecutors know well, which is lawyers and accountants and definitely judges love paper evidence. But normal people respond to stories. And Cindy Laporta's told a story today that she was under pressure, that this was wrong, but she went along with Paul Manafort's alleged crimes. Do you think that kind of story is critical to Mueller winning this case?
It's the perfect sort of complement to the documentary evidence, to all of the paper that the jury's seeing. And it's not a problem if the evidence feels a little bit murky at this stage, because the prosecution's job right now is to put facts and testimony in front of the jury. And then in their closing argument, they'll get to assemble all of those facts into a cohesive story that will be used to convince the jury of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The story, sort of the almost human interest that they hear today from Laporta, I think is helpful in getting the jury through to that point.
Josh, on the idea of hiding the foreign accounts, how damning was that? Because taken together, it seems to go to Manafort's deliberate criminal intent. That's the way Mueller is playing it forward. But again, trials have two sides, and I think we can definitely expect Manafort's defense counsel, when it's their turn, to say, after this entire probe, all this attention is on whether he said or correctly remembered all this foreign stuff. Even if he got it wrong, how big a deal is that?
Well, you know, they did say that in addition to sending the typical questionnaire that goes out to clients about whether they have foreign bank accounts, the accountant said, well, we emailed them specifically and said, we want to ask you again, do you have foreign accounts? Do you have signature authority over them? And Manafort or Gates in the various instances wrote back no. I think that's problematic, but I do think it could be explained away potentially as an oversight or some confusion about what counts as signature authority. That's what the defense seems to be arguing. I do think, again, that the bank fraud testimony that came in, cases where at one point there was a $1.5 million loan outstanding, and it was a problem when getting another loan, and suddenly there was an 8-month backdated document available saying that loan had been forgiven, and it was on stationery that seemed to be kind of shady, and a signature that seemed shady. That kind of testimony I just think is very, very damaging. And as you know, Ari, bank fraud Those counts carry a 30-year maximum penalty on each one. The law takes that very, very seriously, and I think there's real trouble on the bank fraud charges for Manafort.
Right. You see real risk there. As you say, this was the best day of the case. Final word to you, Joyce. When you look at what they're going to do when the Manafort's team gets in the ring, so much of this coverage is what looks bad for him. Could you give us any wisdom on what they'll try to do to rebut what Josh says has been a tough day?
They don't have much of a rebuttal opportunity here. Their best argument, the argument that they suggested that they would use in their opening statement, is that it wasn't Manafort, it was Gates. But there was testimony from witness after witness yesterday and today indicating that Manafort was the person who provided them with final details. Manafort saw and reviewed every document before it was signed and filed. It will be virtually impossible for them to make that argument, and they'll be stuck, as so many defendants are, simply with arguing that the government didn't present enough evidence to meet its burden of proof, and that it's not enough for the jury to think the defendant might be guilty, that the jury should, in essence, hold the government responsible for proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Doesn't look like the government's going to have a lot of trouble here, though.
Right, and that the best they can do is say, if you have any doubt whether maybe Rick Gates was actually secretly pulling the strings, or any doubt whether Paul Manafort was actually confused, then maybe throw it all away. And I think that speaks to why it's been such a methodical case from Mueller's team. My special thanks to Joyce and Josh. We greatly appreciate it. I will tell you still ahead, goats can eat your trash, they can trim your grass, they can even help you exercise and nail your perfect yoga position, the downward dog. We are going to explain how goats fit into some very important developments. Look at the one on the back. That's some serious yoga posing there. That's when we're right back.
A hotel can make or break a trip. And at Expedia, we don't think you should be rushed into booking one. That's why we created Expedia's Add-on Advantage. Now after booking your flight, you unlock discounts on select hotels, right until the day you leave. Add-on Advantage. Discounted hotel rates when you add on to your trip. Only when you book with Expedia.
Sarah always chooses to take the stairs, but climbing 58,070 steps a year can be hard on her feet, knees, and lower back. That's why she wears Dr. Scholl's orthotics. They're clinically proven to relieve pain and give you the comfort to move more. Dr. Scholl's, born to move.
Angie's List, because we can always find great local pros.
For any type of home project.
I use Angie's List if I need to find a plumber.
An electrician.
A painter.
I always use Angie's List because it's free. It's free for me to read reviews written by real customers.
We can check their reputation to make sure they do quality work. And now, to save time, Angie's List can actually match my project to a few qualified pros who can do the job.
To get the most reviews from real customers, all for free, go to angieslist.com today.
Find myself in you, I know this love is true, and I never let you go.
Elite Singles, the leading dating site for highly educated singles. Register today to love again at EliteSingles.com.
With the new United Explorer card, I get rewarded wherever I go. Going out for a bite? Rewarded. Going new places? Rewarded!
Learn at theexplorercard.com. Got a stinky sink? Stop drain odors, backups, and clogs with the cleansing and deodorizing power of Sandy Sticks. Now with a new lemon fresh scent. Drop in one and you're done. Just one Sandy Stick a month dissolves over time, flushing foul odors with a powerful blend of concentrated enzymes and lemon oil that break down and eliminate food, grease, and grime buildup, keeping your pipes clean and odor-free and your home smelling lemon fresh. Stop embarrassing drain odors and get Sandy Sticks now in lemon fresh, original unscented, and other great scents. Now available at these fine retailers.
Crab Fest is back at Red Lobster with our largest variety of crab all year, like new Crab Fest Combo. Your one chance to have new jumbo snow crab with tender Dungeness crab. Or try Crab Lover's Dream. But hurry in, because Crab Fest will be gone in a snap.
Come work for an innovative company that pushes the boundaries of connectivity, entertainment, and information. Spectrum, America's fastest growing TV, internet, and voice provider, is looking for individuals who are interested in making the most out of their career. Employees enjoy full benefits, best-in-class 401k, and complimentary services.
Spectrum has a wide range of positions available, so find the right opportunity for you. Just go to jobs.spectrum.com and apply today.
The following message is brought to you by mesobook.com.
People who have been diagnosed with mesothelioma have many questions. How did I get this disease? What are my treatment options? How will this affect my loved ones? You need answers, which is why we offer a free book written by medical professionals who have treated mesothelioma.
Call toll-free at 1-800-300-8581 or go to mesobook.com.
As promised, let's talk GOAT, a word that could mean many things on the internet. To say someone is the GOAT is to say they're the greatest, specifically the GOAT, an acronym for the greatest of all time. If someone texts you a GOAT emoji like this, that may be what they're saying to you. Then there are actual goats, the kind that roam around many communities across America. They eat leaves, grass, and plants. And that's the story out of Boise, Idaho today, where over 100 goats broke free from their day job. Yes, goats can have jobs. And they are deployed to do munching on a planned basis. There's a company that rents them out to eat up weeds. That company had to send out a truck to go get all these goats. Then they sent 2 trucks. Ultimately, there was some flag work to try to corral those goats, you see, and get them all back into their goat transportation systems. Which does suggest why that organic solution to overgrown weeds can seem like more work than it might be worth. Why not just have electric weed whackers around? It takes perseverance to chase down your moving goat system. It takes patience, clearly takes diligence and energy. And some may ask, is it worth it? Is this the best we can do? It's hard to track down all these goats. Now, I know what you may be thinking as you watch the news. What are we even talking about? Well, perhaps these goats are an allegory for vigilance about facts in our Trump era and how some people are using energy and diligence to fight assaults on the facts, and their slow progress could even put them in the running for yes, GOAT of fact-checking, the greatest of all time. My apologies, but we wanted to at least show you the GOAT videos, and that story is worthwhile, and it's coming up.
Monday, Spike Lee, the visionary filmmaker, sits down with Lester Holt to talk about the Black Klansman and to meet the real-life detective Ron Stallworth, who infiltrated the KKK. Monday on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Hate is on the rise in America. I've dedicated my life to pulling people out of hate. I know how these people think because I used to be one of them.
I can do more to lower my A1C.
And I can do it with what's already within me.
Because my body can still make its own insulin. And once weekly Trulicity activates my body to release it. Trulicity is not insulin. It comes in a once-weekly, truly easy-to-use pen. It works 24/7.
Trulicity is an injection to improve blood sugar in adults with type 2 diabetes when used with diet and exercise. Don't use it as the first medicine to treat diabetes, or if you have type 1 diabetes or diabetic ketoacidosis. Don't take Trulicity if you or your family have medullary thyroid cancer, you're allergic to Trulicity, or have multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2. Stop Trulicity and call your doctor right away if you have symptoms of a serious allergic reaction, a lump or swelling in your neck, or severe stomach pain. Serious side effects may include pancreatitis. Taking Trulicity with a sulfonylurea or insulin increases your low blood sugar risk. Common side effects include nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and decreased appetite. These can lead to dehydration, which may worsen kidney problems.
I choose once-weekly Trulicity to activate my within.
If you need help lowering your A1C, ask your doctor about once-weekly Trulicity.
Fruits and veggies are essential to your health, but it's tough to get enough of their nutrients. New One A Day with Nature's Medley is the only complete multivitamin with antioxidants from one total serving of fruits and veggies. Try New One A Day with Nature's Medley.
Always been independent. I had a husband who was my vision, but when he died, I knew I was in big trouble.
Your service was ideal for me.
At Care.com, you can find the help your mom needs to stay independent at home. Search for lots of local caregivers who can help with meals, housekeeping, personal care, and more. It costs less than you think, and it's easy to pay.
One girl in particular, I think she thought I was her mother or her grandmother. I really do.
Care.com.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for the meeting last week. It was helpful to see our financial picture. When you asked what I'm doing to take care of myself, I didn't have much of an answer. It hasn't been easy to find the time since Michael's been gone. But the question was a good one. So today, I'm starting something for me.
For weeks, ACLU lawyers have been pushing the Trump administration to hand over basic contact information for the families of the migrant kids who've been separated throughout this process, specifically trying to help parents find their kids. Last night, they told the government instead of addresses for moms and dads, what they have received from the Trump administration is just vagaries about the parents' whereabouts, which could be anywhere from a detention facility to being abroad. Of the 572 children in custody, 410 have parents who are not in the U.S., likely because they were deported by Trump. The Trump administration is now saying this: the ACLU should use their resources and network of law firms and volunteers to make contact with those parents abroad. The Trump administration, of course, are the ones who deported or separated all of these people. Now they want someone else, I guess the ACLU, to clean it up. How's that playing in court? Not well. This is the new story. The judge tonight overseeing those court-ordered reunifications says this new Trump effort is unacceptable. Quote, many of these parents were removed from the country without their child. All of this is the result of the government, that's the Trump administration, separation and inability and failure to track and reunite. The reality is that for every parent who's not located, there will be a permanently orphaned child, and that's 100% the responsibility of the Trump administration. I'm joined by MSNBC correspondent Jacob Soboroff, who's reported extensively on this story for years now, before the separation policy kicked in and before this period of litigation ensued. Number one, your view of what was a smackdown of this idea that the ACLU should clean up Trump's mess.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I mean, it was a smackdown, it was a clapback from the judge. And I was in court a week ago tonight down in San Diego when the judge said he was going to order both of these parties to come up with a plan to reunite
I'll do my best.
The remaining kids. 2,551 was the overall number. 572 is the number of kids that still, months later, haven't been reunited with their parents, Ari. And the judge was flabbergasted. He just said there is no plan. Nobody came up with a plan. I ordered you last week to come up with a plan. The administration submitted in this paperwork, this court filing, last night, Thursday night, a plan that basically said, you know what, if the ACLU really wants to do it that badly, you guys should take the lead and we'll be the supporting role here.
Right. I mean, it's remarkably cynical. You would expect it from other parts of the administration in rhetoric. To go to a judge and say it is pretty wild. It's as if somebody complained that, say, inmates are not being fed meals in prison and the response of the government is fine. You feed them. You come to the jails and feed them. It doesn't even make sense.
Just logically, you're the Trump administration. You are the ones that put into place this systematic policy to separate all these kids that had never been done before, to take them away from their parents, to do this as a deterrence policy that nobody else would come into this country illegally, a strategy we know doesn't make sense. And then when the thing doesn't work out, just like there was no plan in the beginning to put it into place, and that's why it was such a disaster, they just decided, you know what, we're not really going to come up with a plan anyways to undo this, and we'll ask somebody else to do it.
Right. So there's a lot of mess there. I do want to hit one positive part that I'm curious about your view, because you've been covering this so closely. You mentioned the filings. I mean, we have this, right? This is a government filing. The 572 number is what the Trump administration coughed up under pressure. And so while much of this was a complete, unforced, humanitarian crisis because of Trump's orders, what do you think of the fact that over these weeks, we see the court system working, we see the accountability and the pressure on, we see the majority of the families reunited under the combination of public advocacy, public scrutiny, and judges and courts forcing their hand.
It's an extraordinary thing and it's an inspiring thing, quite frankly. And for me, making the journey from going down there and being on the border and being inside these detention centers and seeing the children in cages, knowing that by talking about this stuff, the public pressure not only to get the President of the United States to sign that executive order to stop the policy, but to go into the court. Without this judge, Legal Alert said to Chris Hayes in the last hour, there are probably 5,000 children that were separated instead of 2,551. The judge not only stopped the separations, but in this first phase got over 1,800 kids reunited with their parents or placed with a family or a sponsor. And now the remaining 572, he is forcing the government to go out there, put a point person in place, and reunite the rest of these folks.
Right. And you've been so close to it, I think that's important. It's not to say, oh, this is making things better. It's making them less terrible for people. But for the people affected, less terrible is something the court system is actually achieving, and that's important. Jacob Soboroff, again, thank you for all your contributions to this story. Still ahead tonight, a lot of paper, but not a lot of time. We'll explain ahead.
Friends, colleagues, gathered here are the world's finest insurance experts. Rodney, mastermind of discounts like Safe Driver, Paperless, the list goes on.
How about a discount for long lists?
Gold. Mara, you save our customers hundreds for switching almost effortlessly. It's a gift. And Jamie.
Present.
Together, we are unstoppable. So, what are we gonna do? Insurance. That's kind of what we do here.
Wireless for $15 a month. That's not right.
It's right, all right. Finger dipping? That's not right.
That dip look good.
Oh, that does look good.
You gotta try this. That's so good.
That's not right.
Neither is the way you get wireless. Mint Mobile took what's wrong with wireless and made it right. For easy, online, and just $15 a month. Get your plan today at mintmobile.com.
I tried Oxy at a couple of parties. I thought I had it under control. I didn't know it'd be this addictive. I didn't know how far I'd go to get more. Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth.
What you don't see can hurt you. Today's connected world is full of threats you may not see if you just monitor your credit to help protect your identity. LifeLock sees more, like your personal information on the dark web. And now with the power of Norton, we detect threats like ransomware too, to help protect your identity and devices. Plus, if there's an identity theft problem, we'll work to fix it with our $1 Million protection package. Get new LifeLock with Norton, starting at $9.99 a month.
I finally figured out what car to get. Now, where to find the best deal?
You know, why don't I help?
What's that?
Car Gurus. Color?
Silver. Car Gurus?
Low miles, 2 grand below market value, 5-star dealer rating. Ooh, I'm beat.
Let's do it your way, then.
I heard that.
Go to Car Gurus today to find great deals from top-rated dealers near you.
We've got exciting news at North Hollywood Toyota. We've teamed up with Kelley Blue Book, and we're now your trade-in headquarters. Get an instant cash or trade-in offer based on Kelley Blue Book values right inside our dealership. Best part is, it's free.
Like you said, it's free.
Get an instant Kelley Blue Book quote online today at northhollywoodtoyota.com.
So trade in your car today and drive away in a brand new Toyota. North Hollywood Toyota. Let's go places.
You have enough things to do. Remembering to pay your Spectrum bill doesn't have to be one of them. That's why Spectrum offers AutoPay to make your life easier. To enroll in AutoPay, just visit spectrum.net and log in with your username and password. Rather than making a one-time payment, click on Enroll in AutoPay and follow the prompts. It's easy and convenient. Enroll now for Spectrum AutoPay and take one more thing off your to-do list. Visit spectrum.net today.
Here's a pivotal period on the calendar. Sometime in September. That is when Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley wants to hold the confirmation hearing for Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, a pivotal Trump pick. He's asked the National Archives for everything it has from Kavanaugh In all 3 years, he served in the White House counsel's office for Bush, and he wants it by August 15th, and he got his answer, and it is no. The answer officially, quote, we currently expect to be able to complete this review by the end of October 2018, which is, golly, pretty close to the midterms. The National Archives says it has potentially over 900,000 pages of documents to produce just from the Republicans' request. This is a key space to watch.
At Ace, kids are some of our favorite customers.
How far does this spray? Why would anybody want to take the dust? How do you unglue?
There's nothing better than helping kids. That's why ACE supports Children's Miracle Network hospitals.
This Friday through Sunday only. Donate $5 to your local Children's Miracle Network hospital at your neighborhood ACE and get the 5-gallon bucket plus 20% off almost anything that fits inside.
ACE is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
I was like, man, this person really smells. And, you know, I'm like scooting away farther and farther. The smell kept following me. And then I realized, oh, God, that's me. And the reason why this person was making weird faces at me is because I had bad breath. That's gross.
Bad breath is sulfur gas. Smart Mouth eliminates and blocks smelly sulfur gas for 24 hours. That's because Smart Mouth actually works. Smart Mouth. Never have bad breath. Guaranteed.
We knew Angie's List had reviews of home pros.
But so do lots of websites.
I didn't want to pay.
Then I found out it's free. Wait, it's free?
Free to check ratings, read reviews.
And they'll even match your project with a few qualified pros for the job.
Go to angieslist.com today.
Now I'm gonna tell my mama that I'm a traveler. I'm gonna follow the sun. Now I'm gonna tell my mama that I'm a traveler.
Transitions. Right under control.
This is not a bed. It's a high-tech sleep revolution. The Sleep Number 360 smart bed intelligently senses your movement and automatically adjusts, so you wake up ready to run the world. The new Sleep Number 360 smart bed from $9.99.
Brain changes as you get older, but Prevagen helps your brain with an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen. Healthier brain, better life.
A very busy news day.
Today's high-stakes confrontation.
Let's go live to the border where our colleagues... Exclusive video.
The country's top intelligence officials testifying.
NBC News gets an exclusive look inside.
Live here at the nation's capital.
There's now an open investigation. Blockbuster new reporting today on this...
This is the deadliest school shooting.
The Supreme Court upheld the revised version.
Well, this new report comes amid a staggering amount of news.
Breaking news tonight exclusively here on...
NBC News was first out with this scoop
It's
today.
been an extraordinary night watching this develop. So, a lot to talk about.
Now we turn to something that is important around here, fact-checking. Donald Trump made a giant claim in his first speech to Congress.
According to data provided by the Department of Justice, the vast majority of individuals convicted of terrorism and terrorism-related offenses since 9/11 came here from outside of our country.
Sounds important. If true, well, the editor of Lawfare, Ben Wittes, who's also an MSNBC contributor, noticed it didn't sound like something the DOJ would have produced. So his team reported and debunked the core of that claim. It appeared the claim distorted separate data from the National Security Division of the Justice Department, but they couldn't rule out that maybe some other part of the DOJ had a role in it. So Wittes kept pressing for anything to show DOJ giving the president the data that he claimed to Congress was his source. Finally, this week, he got an answer. Quote, there are no such records in Justice Department files. In fact, he notes not a single email, not a report, nothing. No responsive records located, the DOJ said. And Wittes says that means the president stood up and made a representation to Congress about immigrants that wasn't true and attributed it to the Justice Department data, which doesn't exist. This is a governing problem. Democrats in Congress now pressing the administration on the issue of how this happened and who was involved so they can prevent it. The wider context is that this forced fact-checking comes as the president calls the press the enemy of the people and is in a fight with the New York Times editor-in-chief this week and the United Nations over his attacks on the free press. The DOJ data reveals a separate prong of Donald Trump's strategy that should be exposed. Undercut the factual press and advance lies that purport to be their own government-backed facts. If this all sounds exhausting, it may be supposed to be exhausting. Ben Wittes wouldn't be exhausted. He used federal transparency laws to expose the lie and make Trump's own Justice Department confirm it. Just like the Washington Post continues to fact-check the president in year 2, counting up just like it did in year 1. There are other options here. A final thought tonight is that maybe some politicians want you to pick the other option. They want you to be exhausted. They want you to feel like nothing matters, so you drop out of the debate. But this is no time to tune in and drop out. This is a time for game on. And that does it for us tonight. If you want to find me on Monday, you can always find The Beat at 6 p.m. Eastern. I will be joined by the creator of the famous internet video Honey Badger Don't Care. Honey Badger Don't Care. You ever seen this one? There was a giant legal copyright fight over it, and we have the news and the exclusive. Maybe because no one else wants it, but we do have it on Monday. I've run a little bit over on time, but I want to hand the baton over to Katie Tur, who's filling in, I'm told, on The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell.
Can you do the Honey Badger voice?
Can I do the voice?
Yeah.
Well, that's an impression of a thing that a lot of people haven't heard.
All right. I'm disappointed.
But the voice,
I'm disappointed.
I just want to lower expectations. It shows this honey badger, and it gives personality to him. It anthropomorphizes him as he moves through his day. And it says, this guest we're going to have on Monday does it much better than I ever could. But he says, Honey Badger don't care. Honey Badger don't care. And it shows him moving about the natural world, Katie. And I did that for you.
It is one of my favorite internet videos of all time. So Ari, thank you. Ari, thank you. I appreciate it.
Katie
And also including those goats on the loose. Earlier today, I tweeted that in a perfect world, that would be the lead story. It wasn't your lead story, but you're clearly trying to make one of my dreams come true. And I appreciate that.
Katie, I will leave you with a compliment for your weekend. As far as we are concerned, you are the GOAT, the greatest of all time when it comes to anchors.
Or the goat in the goat rodeo. Who knows? Ari Melber.
Who knows?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katie.
I'm Katie Tur, in for Lawrence O'Donnell. Tonight we begin with the Russia cloud hanging over President Trump as he starts his vacation at his Bedminster resort. Some of the most controversial moments of the Trump administration have happened while the president was staying at Bedminster. And this trip may be no different. The decision to fire James Comey as FBI director was made at Bedminster. It was there that Trump failed to call out white supremacists in the wake of the violence in Charlottesville. And now Trump's TV lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, says the president will likely decide whether to sit for an interview with special counsel Robert Mueller while he is at Bedminster. But Giuliani admits to NBC News that it might not be Donald Trump's decision to make, admitting that Trump might be, quote, forced to testify on matters that occurred before he took office. And that might mean real legal jeopardy for the president. That admission comes as we're learning new details about the Trump-Mueller relationship. Bloomberg reports that the day after he interviewed Robert Mueller to be the director of the FBI, Trump was in an Oval Office meeting when an aide announced that Mueller had been appointed the special counsel to investigate the Trump campaign. Trump and Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who attended both meetings, were blindsided, according to a person familiar with both meetings. The president immediately blasted Sessions for not knowing the announcement was coming and challenged how the person he just interviewed for the FBI job, and who Trump had said he had a past dispute with over golf club fees, could now be investigating him, the person said. Now, we don't know if Trump had turned down Mueller for the FBI job at this point, but we do know that Christopher Wray wasn't named to be the next director until almost a month after Mueller's appointment as special counsel. So it is likely that Mueller was still in the running, maybe, to head the FBI when he was named to investigate the Trump team. Bloomberg notes, from that moment on, Trump has complained to aides about a perceived grudge. Of course, that grudge has likely been exacerbated after the first week of the criminal trial of the president's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort. Today, we heard from the first 5 witnesses who were granted immunity by Mueller's prosecutors. In remarkable testimony, accountant Cindy Laporta described how Manafort's business partner, Rick Gates, asked tax preparers in 2015 to modify the amount of a loan so Manafort would have to pay less in taxes. He was trying to reduce income and therefore taxes, Laporta told jurors. it was inappropriate. Laporta took responsibility for the changing of the amount on the loan, essentially admitting that she went along with tax fraud by Manafort and Rick Gates. Laporta testified that Manafort asked her as late as August 2016, his last month as chair of the Trump campaign, to falsify numbers related to his company's profits. Rick Gates, Mueller's star witness, is set to testify any day now. And remember, he's already pleaded guilty and is cooperating with prosecutors. NBC News also learned today that Kristen Davis, the infamous Manhattan Madam, met with a member of Robert Mueller's team. It's believed that Davis met with Mueller because of her close ties to another Trump confidant, Roger Stone. Only time will tell what, if anything, will happen during this Trump trip to Bedminster. But if history is any indication, we could be in for an unexpectedly eventful summer vacation. Joining us now are Julia Ainsley, national security and justice reporter for NBC News. She was in the courtroom today for the Manafort trial. Harry Littman, former federal prosecutor and deputy assistant attorney general under President Clinton, and Glenn Kirshner, former federal prosecutor. Julia, I'm going to have you play a few roles for me tonight because you do also cover the Justice Department. Jeff Sessions in the room with the president when he is told that Robert Mueller is going to be special counsel, according to Bloomberg News. Jeff Sessions offered his resignation in that moment.
That's right. I mean, I think for Jeff Sessions, the idea that Robert Mueller had been appointed was pretty obvious right there. He saw the writing on the wall, that it was because he had recused himself from this investigation that this had been allowed to happen, that Rod Rosenstein was allowed to appoint this special counsel. But of course, the way we all see it, and kind of the logical way to see it, is that the appointment of Robert Mueller was because of the firing of Jim Comey. It was actually the president's decision to fire Jim Comey, not Jeff Sessions' decision to recuse himself, that triggered this. But knowing Donald Trump, and I think that Jeff Sessions is a pretty good read on the man, he knew that he would also be in trouble. And when we look back at last summer, the number of times that we were on Sessions' watch, thinking he was about to lose his job, and the people I talked to at the Justice Department said he will hang on by his fingernails for this job, Katie. He thought that this is his last role in politics. It's one he's wanted to get to for a long time. We know his former law enforcement days are some of the ones he holds most dearly, more so than his 20-plus years in the Senate. And he saw this as his last big role and really his place to be able to push through a lot of the decisions that we've seen, a lot of these policies on immigration and the like, and he was going to hold on to it for as long as he could. But he did see that this was going to be the thing that would fracture the relationship. And it has for some time. We saw the president attack Jeff Sessions just this week.
Harry, the president obviously doesn't like Robert Mueller. We've known that for some time. He tweets about him. But he does keep bringing up what he perceives as a bias, that he almost offered him the FBI director job, that he had some sort of dispute over fees at one of his clubs. Could either of those things be considered bias?
So no, we already know they're not considered because the DOJ gave him a clean bill of health. But it's interesting because, as Julia says, it's the second Mueller is appointed that Sessions realizes, and that's before all these kind of make-weight charges of 13 angry Democrats, etc. Who is Bob Mueller in that second that you just have the revelation that he's been appointed? He is the best, most dogged, most methodical, most honest prosecutor of his generation. That's who he is then, and right away the problem with him is not bias, it's effectiveness, which has turned out, in fact, to be the problem.
Let's talk about Manafort for a second and go back to Julia one more time. Julia, Manafort's trial has just now ended its first week. It focused a lot around what we heard from the accountant today, talking about how she knew she was filing incorrect taxes, but also around Manafort's spending. There was that $15,000 ostrich coat, I should say, that bomber jacket. The prosecution is very clearly trying to paint Manafort as a big spender who didn't care about cheating the government and the American people in order to furnish his very lavish lifestyle. How is the defense doing?
Not as well, Katie. I mean, right now we're seeing a list of prosecution witnesses who have all been picked for a very particular reason, and they lay out a pattern and a narrative of who Paul Manafort is. He's someone who spent a lot of money on his lifestyle and was so desperate to hang on to that lifestyle that he was willing to exaggerate his income in order to get bank loans and then deflate his income in order to get a deal on taxes. And he didn't care who he took down in the process, and he didn't care what kind of dirty characters he had to work with in order to get there. But I think what we're going to see now going forward is the defense is going to try again and again to discredit witnesses, particularly Rick Gates. And we now know that he will testify. The prosecution said yesterday they have every reason to bring him forward, and they plan on doing so. They want to paint Rick Gates as the linchpin in the prosecution's argument, and they want to show that he is not someone who can be trusted. For those reasons, we actually believe that the prosecution won't wait until the end to bring up Rick Gates, may bring him up early next week so that he isn't the last thing in jurors' minds when they go to deliberate. Another argument they made today, Katie, that I don't think went over very well, just judging by how brief their questions were in the cross-examination, is they wanted to show that Paul Manafort had left plenty of breadcrumbs for anyone who might want to look into this. And that with his first accountant, Phil Aleph, who has not gotten immunity because he didn't do anything wrong, he refused to lie for Paul Manafort, Paul Aleph basically was able to say, well, yes, I knew that they were working with foreign people, but I didn't know he had foreign bank accounts. The defense wants to say there were plenty of breadcrumbs, and if his accountant didn't know it, and this is important because I think it'll come up later, if the IRS didn't want to do an audit and bring a civil case against Paul Manafort, why all these years later is the Justice Department bringing a serious criminal case? But it doesn't seem to be holding up as well as they'd like, particularly because breadcrumbs don't lead you directly to 30 foreign bank accounts across the world. It's a little harder to get there.
That's a good point. Vox reports that even a pardon from President Trump to Paul Manafort might not be enough to keep him out of jail. Even a pardon may not entirely be a get-out-of-jail-free card. There are a host of complications involved, including potential state charges against Manafort. The president cannot pardon state charges. Glenn, there is a lot of talk, and we talked about this earlier today, about why in the world Manafort hasn't made a plea deal. And you posture that maybe a plea deal wasn't offered.
Yeah, I have to say, Katie, that it wouldn't surprise me if Bob Mueller never extended a plea offer to Paul Manafort. Why would that be? Well, for two reasons. First of all, Rick Gates is already a cooperating witness, and we know that Rick Gates' information is somewhat duplicative of the information that Paul Manafort could provide to the prosecutors. And then the other factor that I think weighs into the calculus when we look at whether we want to actually do business with a defendant and bring him into our stable of cooperators, who is that person and how long has he been engaged in illegality? Paul Manafort really seems to have lived a very long life of at least financial illegality. And then, as we all came to learn, in the run-up to these trials, he actually also reached out and touched, so to speak, some witnesses and tried to tamper with their testimony. Now, if you play that out, if we as prosecutors decided to bring Manafort into the cooperator stable, and then we put him on the stand, he would be cross-examined up and down on things like, well, wait a minute, Mr. Manafort, you tried to get witnesses to lie for you to get you out of trouble. You tried to pervert and subvert the criminal justice system, and now you want the jury to believe you're not going to sit up there and lie to try to save your own skin? You know, the cooperator stink tends to rub off on the prosecutors when you bring somebody on board who has engaged in that kind of conduct that really strikes at the very heart of the criminal justice system. So then, and then the other reason, Katie, that I would suggest might impact Paul Manafort's thinking about whether he wants to flip and provide information to Bob Mueller, he would also be providing information about Russian oligarchs. We know Judge Ellis doesn't like that word, and what have we seen Russia do when somebody crosses them? We've seen poisonings in the UK, and I think Paul Manafort could legitimately have some concern for his safety or the safety of his family members if he decided to flip against Russia.
So Manafort's trial is really just about financial crimes, but it is part of the larger Russia investigation, and there's a lot of tentacles. And one of the more ridiculous-seeming tentacles we have news on today, the Manhattan Madam, Kristen Davis, the woman that was charged with in the Elliot Spitzer scandal many years ago, was subpoenaed by Mueller's team. We have now learned today that she has spoken to Mueller's team. Roger Stone issued a statement about this. Kristen Davis is a longtime friend and associate of mine. I am the godfather to her 2-year-old son. She knows nothing about alleged Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other impropriety related to the 2016 election, which I thought was the subject of this probe. I understand she appeared voluntarily. I'm highly confident she will testify truthfully if called upon to do so. Also, this news, Washington Post reports that another Stone aide has been ordered to speak with Robert Mueller. This man was trying to not speak with him. One of his aides was trying to say, Andrew Miller is this man's name, was trying to say that the special counsel's probe was too wide and he shouldn't have to follow a subpoena. Well, a court has testified or has ruled that he should have to talk to Robert Mueller, and he should do so quickly. Harry, what are these two people? How do they have anything to do with this? And what does this mean for Roger Stone?
Yeah, it's all about Stone. Look, the madam is they're a colorful couple, aren't they? But it's just because of their long-standing friendship. They're really zeroing in on Stone, and she's one of many people who they would want to talk to, but the other people haven't been madams. Miller is kind of to Stone as Gates was to Manafort. He's the real right-hand man. He offered this constitutional argument, which is a real loser, basically saying Mueller has no authority to do anything, the same thing Manafort tried in EDVA. He lost. He's going to have some real information to provide. But the main thing it shows is that the sights are really locked in on Stone, which should come as no surprise because this recent indictment of the GRU folks in Russia actually didn't name him because DOJ policy, but identified him in paragraph 44 as someone who had consorted with him. So Mueller is obviously in trying to stitch up Russia and the U.S., looking very hard at Stone.
And whether or not Stone was a potential back channel, Julia, I know from reporting that I've done with Carol Lee and with others here, that the witnesses that Robert Mueller has so far spoken to, they have been asked by Mueller's team pretty pointed questions about Roger Stone. And what did Roger Stone know? What was he doing? Did he really leave the campaign in 2015? Stone says he quit. The Trump team said he was fired. But did he really leave? Or was there some sort of unofficial role that he was playing behind the scenes? Was he potentially in contact with Russia or WikiLeaks and feeding that material to Donald Trump? Why did Donald Trump say on July 27, 2016, Russia, if you're listening, find Hillary Clinton's emails? It seems like, and Sam Nunberg will tell you this, he's one of the people who sat in front of the special counsel, it seems like they are targeting Roger Stone and he could potentially be a linchpin. Is that saying too much? Is that making too broad an assumption?
No, Katie, this is why I love your reporting on this and I love chasing down these threads with you. But it doesn't seem that hard to connect that we know from indictments that have back into the DNC, Hillary Clinton emails, and use that information to also influence our election. And a huge piece of this is social media and the work that they did through Cambridge Analytica, as well as the leaks of those hacks that we just talked about through WikiLeaks. And we know that Roger Stone has a lot of tentacles in those different worlds. He's done a lot of work in England. He's very closely tied to the Trump campaign. And, I mean, we have to look across the way they're painting these characters. The same way they're talking about Paul Manafort and trial. These are people who have been in Republican politics for some time, but these aren't the people who are kind of carrying this moral backbone of the party. They're really in it. They believe that the ends justify the means. And I think that just by those pointed questions that you've reported on, the interviews you've done with Sam Nunberg, it's so obvious that Mueller isn't just beating around the bush and seeing what might come out here. He's really targeting those essential questions.
Roger Stone was not in mainstream politics. Neither was Sam Nunberg. Neither was Paul Manafort, for that matter, yet they all somehow managed to find Donald Trump's team. Was it just that nobody else was available, or was there something more there? Robert Mueller is looking. Julia Ainsley, Harry Littman, Glenn Kirshner, thanks for starting us off tonight, guys.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Katie.
Coming up, the Washington Post is reporting tonight that Maria Butina, the alleged Russian agent, cozied up to a Trump advisor in the final weeks of the 2016 campaign. The reporter who broke that story, Rosalind Helderman, will join us right after this. And later, a federal judge says he will order the Trump administration to take a drastic step to reunite those children with their parents. That's coming up.
Colon cancer screening for people 50 and older at average risk.
I think it's time for a new screen. For a different kind of screen. For colon cancer. Thought about it? His wife asked about screening options.
So, I think I got to get my roof repaired. You know anybody?
Yeah, actually I might.
Ah, great. Get me some additional quotes. Research the average price for the job in this area and book the job for 2 weeks from now. On a Wednesday. No, wait. Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday's better.
You can't expect your neighbors to do everything Home Advisor can. So to find and instantly book a top-rated Home Pro for free, just ask Home Advisor.
Home Advisor.
Gas, bloating, constipation, and diarrhea can start in the colon and may be signs of an imbalance of good bacteria. Only Philips Colon Health has this unique combination of probiotics. It helps replenish good bacteria. Get 4-in-1 symptom defense.
Come work for an innovative company that pushes the boundaries of connectivity, entertainment, and information. Spectrum, America's fastest growing TV, internet, and voice provider, is looking for individuals who are interested in making the most out of their career. Employees enjoy full benefits, best-in-class 401k, and complimentary services. Spectrum has a wide range of positions available, so find the right opportunity for you. Just go to jobs.spectrum.com and apply today.
When you rent a car on Turo, you're renting from a real person. No shuttle rides, no waiting in line, and no wandering a car lot. This is better than your typical car rental. This is Turo. Download the app today.
We have breaking news from the Washington Post, which is reporting tonight that alleged Russian agent Maria Butina was in much closer contact with President Trump's orbit than previously known. Butina is the Russian gun rights activist who is in jail awaiting trial after she was charged with illegally trying to influence U.S. politics for the Kremlin. Tonight, the Washington Post reports that Butina sought out interactions with J.D. Gordon, who served for 6 months as the Trump campaign's director of national security before leaving in August 2016 and being offered a role in the nascent Trump transition effort. The two exchanged several emails in September and October 2016, culminating in an invitation from Gordon to attend a concert by the rock band Styx in Washington. I can't make that up. Gordon also invited Butina to attend his birthday party in late October of that year. Joining us now is Rosalind Helderman, political investigative reporter who broke this story, the political investigative reporter who broke this story for the Washington Post. Also back with us is Harry Littman. Rosalind, I'm sorry I'm laughing, but inviting her to a Styx concert and his birthday party is pretty funny.
They still toured.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But then again, I'm a fan of a band that's been touring for 20-something years or more, so I shouldn't pass judgment. Here's what J.D. Gordon told you tonight. Let me read it. From everything I've seen or read, everything I've read since her arrest last month, it seems the Maria Butina saga is basically a sensationalized clickbait story meant to smear a steady stream of Republicans and NRA members she reportedly encountered over the past few years. Since she networks so extensively among both groups at conferences and social events, I wonder which prominent Republican political figures she has not come across. I got to tell you, from the photos I've seen of Butina, she has been standing next to some prominent political figures, including former presidential candidates long before Donald Trump got the nomination, and prominent NRA members. What makes the interaction with J.D. Gordon so significant?
Well,
I think part of it is his connection to the Trump campaign, and it's clear from emails that were described to us that was a key part of why she sort of sought out this interaction. She apparently met J.D. Gordon, a person who's very important in the Trump transition. He's the kind of person that all the right people listen to his advice on international policy. So it did seem that the Trump connection was part of why she was making contact with him.
Let me ask you more about the Trump campaign foreign policy advisors. They were not visible on the campaign, not really. People like George Papadopoulos, not around much. I never saw him actually on the campaign. Carter Page, didn't see him either. J.D. Gordon was somebody who was named, didn't see him on the campaign. These names seem to not come out of nowhere. The Trump campaign was pressured to release a list of who was advising him, because at the time, nobody was advising him. And at the time, considering that nobody was answering the phone and nobody made appearances, it kind of felt like these people were just random people they put on a list and sent to reporters. It now looks like there's something more there. I mean, given that Carter was somebody that the intelligence community had their eye on because of the interactions he was having with Russians. George Papadopoulos, the one who it's reported started this whole investigation because he was bragging to an Australian diplomat in a London bar that Russia had dirt on Hillary Clinton. And now J.D. Gordon linking these two seemingly separate investigations on a Russian influence campaign.
Yeah, I've done quite a bit of reporting on Carter Page and George Papadopoulos in particular, and one of the things that struck me about the two of them was that they really aggressively sought out the connection with the Trump campaign at a time when, as you mentioned, the campaign was really having a devil of a time finding figures who they could tout as foreign policy advisors. We did a story once quoting a Trump advisor at the time saying basically anybody with a pulse was what they were looking for.
Yeah.
And people like George and Carter were people with a pulse who stepped forward and said, choose us.
Yeah, I got to tell you, the day that I saw George Papadopoulos' picture, I was taken aback. I did not expect somebody so young. Harry Littman, what stands out to you about this?
Well, speaking of so young, she's 29, he's 50. So we have, again, the sort of vanity of older men. For historians of political scandals, this is the exact ages, it occurred to me, of Gary Hart and Donna Rice in Monkey Business time.
Yeah.
And, the whole kind of younger woman, using older guys to get political influence. But what stands out to me is, you said it, what's the defense of J.D. Gordon? I don't know if there's a prominent Republican political official she hasn't met with. It augurs a very effective several months where she's penetrating anywhere and everywhere she can with the help of this Republican operative and as you say, lover, Keith Erickson. And it just seems like this is not a sort of 1 week little story, an episode, but she really got around.
And Harry, just really quickly, could this what Rosalind uncovered, say the special counsel didn't know about it? I don't know. They know about most things, but say they didn't know about it. Is this the sort of thing that could prompt them to call her in for questioning?
Oh, well, she's arrested, so yeah, and she's gonna have enormous pressure on her. But yes, they'll talk to her, but also there's some figures in the campaign in her wide circle, and they will zero in like Gordon, but we already knew of a couple others, so that's what will really interest them. The couple people from the campaign, the masquerade party just after the election, etc.
Got it. Harry Littman, Rosalind Helderman. Guys, thank you very much.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you, Katie.
Coming up, a federal judge gave the Trump administration a sharp reminder about the suffering of the children separated from their parents and who is to blame for it. Maria Teresa Kumar and Neera Tandon join us next.
Fact is, there are over 9,600 roads named Park in the U.S. It's America's most popular street name, but all state agents know that's where popularity stops. If you're on Park Street in Reno, Nevada, the high winds of the Washos, are you in good hands?
If you're curved below the belt, you may not know what caused it, and you may not know what to do. A significant curve may be a medical condition called Peyronie's disease. And there are thousands of other men out there who may also have it. Many may go undiagnosed. Talk to a urologist about Peyronie's disease. And to learn more, visit learnaboutpd.com.
You want a home with central air. Because summer. You need Realtor.com, the home of home search.
Promote what makes your business great with Vistaprint. Whether it's a business card, a banner, or a postcard, we have the paper stocks, sizes, and design options. Give it a try with 500 standard business cards starting at just $9.99 when you use code VP500 at Vistaprint.com.
When heartburn hits, fight back fast with Tums Smoothies. It neutralizes stomach acid at the source. Smoothies. And introducing new Tums Sugar Free.
When did work become more like play? I mean, come on, that's not even an office. Okay, I want his job. Work is changing, and Spectrum is ready for it. Because change moves business forward. Spectrum has invested billions creating a secure, reliable network to power your business, today and tomorrow. Spectrum, think forward.
We'll build it, box it, and ship it to your door for you to enjoy. Sleep on it for up to 100 nights and love it, or you'll get a full refund. Returns are free and easy.
I love my Lisa.
Today is gonna be great.
Read our reviews, then try the Lisa mattress in your own home. Experience the Lisa difference before you buy at any West Elm. Order now and get $150 off. And free shipping too. Go to buylisa.com today.
You need this bed.
It's a kid. He poisoned them. He's confessed it.
She's beyond anything you can understand.
You knew what would happen when they drank it.
Yes.
Stream the premiere episode on demand.
It has been over a week since the court-ordered deadline for the Trump administration to reunite all of the 2,551 migrant children separated from their parents at the border under their zero-tolerance immigration policy. But 572 remain in government custody. The parents of most of these children have already been deported. On Thursday, the Trump administration proposed that the ACLU take responsibility for identifying and locating these hundreds of missing parents, saying they have more resources to track them down. More resources in the federal government. But today, a federal judge rejected that proposal and blasted the government's efforts to reunite these families as, quote, unacceptable. Judge Dana Sabra telling NBC News many of these parents were removed from the country without their child. All of this is the result of the government's separation and then inability and failure to track and reunite. And the reality is that for every parent who is not located, there will be a permanently orphaned child. And that is 100% the responsibility of the administration. That same judge is now ordering the White House to designate a person or team within the administration to take control of the reunification process. Joining us now is Maria Teresa Kumar, President and CEO of Voto Latino and an MSNBC contributor, and Neera Tanden, President of the Center for American Progress. She was also Hillary Clinton's policy director during the 2008 presidential campaign. Neera, there still isn't somebody in charge of this. The court is ordering them to get somebody in charge of the reuniting.
Yes, I mean, we have been going through this saga for months, and more importantly, these children have been going through this pain and misery at the hands of the Trump administration for months. And every night that these children do not know where their parents are is an unacceptable atrocity. And the reality is, Ivanka Trump said yesterday the family separation policy was a true low point for her. She is a senior advisor to the President of the United States. She works in the White House.
I suggest if this is a low point for her and she actually cares about this, she figures out, along with the White House Chief of Staff and everybody in the White House, how to address this problem. I mean, the reality that the government did not track the parents along with their children and have no simple way of identifying the parents, even though they may have already been deported, is an outrage and needs to be addressed not next week, not tomorrow. It needs to be addressed now.
Consider this, Maria. There's new analysis of immigration data that finds parents were targeted. Parents were targeted under this zero-tolerance policy. This is from the Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse at Syracuse University. And they found that U.S. border authorities chose to prosecute adults with kids coming across the border by themselves. That same analysis found that only 32% of all immigrants caught crossing the border were charged with entering the U.S. illegally that month, an indication that it was not a blanket policy, but a targeted effort directed at parents with kids. Let me repeat that they're finding from this analysis that the adults coming over alone were treated differently and better, it seems, than the adults coming over with kids.
Okay, this demonstrates that the Trump administration was trying to exact maximum pain to the most vulnerable. The people that were fleeing, the families that were fleeing, traversed 3 to 4 countries to come here with mostly just on the clothes on their back to give their children a better shot. And the Trump administration, when they said that they were going to do zero tolerance, it wasn't blanketed, it was phony. It was targeted at children. It was targeted at families. And what they did is that they turned around and then they put these children and these babies in cages. And there's not going to be a remedy in any near future to make sure that these children are not only unified with their families, but they're also receiving the medical attention, because the trauma that we're starting to hear that is happening to these children. Some of the children don't want to speak out loud. Some of them follow their parents from room to room once they are unified. Some of them just basically curl up because they're so afraid that they're not going to see their parents once they do. And then there's others that are just plain angry. But the fact that Attorney General Jeff Sessions stared into the camera to the American people and said that he was going to establish a zero tolerance deterrence policy, now only to find that it wasn't zero tolerance, that it was only aimed at the most vulnerable, at parents and children, should really be a wrenching reminder of to the American people of the cruelty of this administration. When Ivanka Trump looks at the American people and says that this is something that she is painfully aware and believes that we should not be doing family separation, I agree 100% with Mira. She should be looking into the president's eyes and saying that they're actually going to do something to stop it. I encourage her to visit the border. I encourage her to go visit those children in the cages so that she actually sees the cruelty that they're exacting.
Hold on,
and this nonsense. And this nonsense is they're telling that the ACLU and that kind should be reunifying these parents and children. Shame on them, because it's the federal government's responsibility.
Hold on, I just want to zero in on one point. Jeff Sessions announced this policy in the spring, and then when the policy was backfiring and they were getting all of the negative headlines and the pictures looked bad, but the lives were actually much worse. They said over and over again, this administration, Kirstjen Nielsen, others in the administration said this was not a policy. This was not a policy. Yeah. This was not a policy. And now to see this analysis, not only was it a policy, but it was a policy that was aimed at parents, not just at anybody crossing the border, but parents specifically.
That's right. And there is actually what's really curious is that they're one of the largest security companies that basically provided security guards in Afghanistan for the different government detentions that they had in that country under U.S. control. They received a government contract 2 weeks before this policy of family separation were announced. They were the ones that were basically housing children not in accommodating facilities. Basically, they've discovered that they were in the middle of Phoenix. They were actually housing them in just regular office buildings that didn't have kitchens, that only had one bathroom, that basically held these toddlers for close to 3.5 weeks without having them go outside. It was the neighbors who broke the story. These individuals ended up getting over $200 million contract 2 weeks prior to this family separation policy. It's outrageous.
Remarkable. Neera, you're going to stay with us. Hold on. Maria Teresa Kumar, thank you very much. Coming up, if you don't fully understand what happened in the meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, you're not alone. Neither does the Director of National Intelligence. Stay with us.
What we're witnessing
Every day is the story of our time.
What's going on behind the scenes at the White House today?
He could find himself in jail. We couldn't do this without the best reporters.
Hey, Laura, can you find out who's writing on this?
This one, to me, is just a whole new level.
Take cue one. We're going to try to give you the best review of this day in the life of this presidency. As we come on the air tonight, we have breaking news on...
When my hot water heater failed, she was pregnant, in-laws were coming, a little bit of water, it rocked our world.
I had no idea the amount of damage that water could do.
We called USAA, and they greeted me as they always do. Sergeant Baker, how are you? They were on it. It was unbelievable. Having insurance is something everyone needs, but having USAA, that's a privilege. We're the Bakers, and we're USAA members for life.
USAA. Get your insurance quote today.
Now I'm gonna tell my mama that I'm a traveler. I'm gonna follow the sun. Now I'm gonna tell my mama that I'm a traveler.
Transitions. Light under control.
To most, he's Phil Mickelson, pro golfer. To me, he's, well, Dad. So when his joint pain from psoriatic arthritis got really bad, it scared me. And what could that pain mean?
Joint pain could mean joint damage. Enbrel helps relieve joint pain, helps stop irreversible joint damage, and helps skin get clearer. Enbrel may lower your ability to fight infections, serious, sometimes fatal events, including infections, tuberculosis, lymphoma, other cancers, nervous system and blood disorders, and allergic reactions have occurred. Tell your doctor if you've been someplace where fungal infections are common, or if you're prone to infections, have cuts or sores, have had hepatitis B, have been treated for heart failure, or if you have persistent fever, bruising, bleeding, or paleness. Don't start Enbrel if you have an infection like the flu.
Since Enbrel, Dad's back to being Dad.
Visit Enbrel.com and use a joint damage simulator to see how your joint damage could be progressing.
Ask about Enbrel. Enbrel. FDA approved for over 15 years.
Getting to know you, getting to know all about you.
Know how your DNA connects you to the world. Get 30% off each kit at 23andme.com or a local retailer.
I'm your Venus.
The smoother the skin, the more comfortable you are in it. And now, there's a new way to smooth. Introducing new Venus Platinum, a premium metal-handled boost control to reveal up to 100% smooth skin. Venus.
This is Vicky. Vicky might not look like a crime-fighting superhero.
But with Ring, she is. Tell us how you did it, Vicky.
Okay. I was home alone at night when I got an alert from Ring there was somebody at my front door. Then I saw this guy, and I said, "Hey, you! Get off my property!"
Then Vicky shared that video with her neighbors, keeping everyone safe.
It was easy, really.
Typical superhero.
Be like Vicky and protect your home with Ring. Go to ring.com and these fine retailers.
Salads should look like this. Crisp leaves of lettuce, freshly made dressing. Clean food that looks this good. Delivered to your desk. Now delivering to home or office. Panera. Food as it should be.
The President of the United States is at odds with his top intelligence officials. Yesterday, in a rare White House briefing room appearance, DNI Director Dan Coates, FBI Director Christopher Wray, Secretary of Homeland Security Kirstjen Nielsen, National Security Advisor John Bolton, and NSA Director General Paul Nakasone addressed Russian interference in the U.S. political system. Their message was clear. Russian attempts to interfere in the 2018 elections are real and ongoing. But just 6 hours later, 6 hours, Donald Trump contradicted his own intelligence officials at a rally in Pennsylvania.
In Helsinki, I had a great meeting with Putin. We discussed everything. I had a great meeting.
The Russians are looking for every opportunity to continue their pervasive efforts to undermine our fundamental values.
Russia's very unhappy that Trump won. That I can tell you. But I got along great with Putin.
As I have said consistently, Russia attempted to interfere with the last election and continues to engage in malign influence operations to this day.
Now we're being hindered by the Russian hoax. It's a hoax.
We acknowledge the threat. It is real. It is continuing, and we're doing everything we can to have a legitimate election that the American people can have trust in.
It is almost as if there are two administrations, one led by grown-ups who are trying to protect our nation and our democracy, the other led by a man who wants to be best buds with our attacker. Or, as Jennifer Rubin writes in the Washington Post, no matter how hard Coates, Wray, Bolton, and others sidestep or try to put words in Donald Trump's mouth, Trump never fails to embarrass them and communicate his true feelings. He has never accepted that he got elected with Russian help, and he is not about to make a personal, all-out push to stop it in 2018. There are only 95 days until the midterm elections. Can the intelligence community work together to ensure fair elections without the help of the commander-in-chief, without the help of the president? We'll discuss that next.
From the beginning, Wells Fargo has supported community organizations like United Way, nonprofits like the American Red Cross, and our nation's veterans. We knew helping our communities was important then, and we know it's even more important today. So we're stepping up to volunteer more and donate over $1 million every day so our communities can be even stronger. It's a new day at Wells Fargo, but it's a lot like our first day.
Introducing new Smart Mouth Premium Zinc Ion Toothpaste.
It is just a different kind of clean feel. There's no gritty, everything feels smooth in there, and it really lasts.
Find Smart Mouth Toothpaste right next to Smart Mouth Mouthwash at Walgreens and Walmart.
Angie's List has collected millions of verified reviews of local home service providers, and now they're free for everyone to read. Angie's List makes it easy for you to find top-quality service providers in your area for any type of home project. Search for a great pro in your area, or let Angie's List instantly match you to a few who can do the job. To get the most reviews from real customers, all for free. Go to angieslist.com today.
Hi.
How was your day?
It's good, it's long.
Let's fix it. Play Connection by One Republic.
These days my waves get lost in the ocean. 7 billion swimmers, man, I'm going through the motions. Set up a flare, I need love and devotion. Traded for some faces that I'll never know. Notion. Can I get a connection? Can I get a connection?
Jimmy's gotten used to his whole room smelling like sweaty odors. Yep, he's gone nose blind. He thinks it smells fine, but his mom smells this. Luckily for all your hard-to-wash fabrics, there's Febreze Fabric Refresher. Febreze doesn't just mask, it eliminates odors you've gone nose blind to. And try Febreze Unstoppables for fabric. With up to twice the fresh scent power, you'll want to try it again, and maybe just one more time. Indulge in irresistible freshness. Febreze Unstoppables. Breathe happy.
It's so hard to believe, but it's all coming back to me.
All you can eat is back, baby. Applebee's. Every remaining 2018 in stock must be sold during our bottom line year-end model sale at Team Nissan. Like the award-winning 2018 Nissan Sentra.
Económica.
Just $14,988. Or save big on the fierce Nissan Titan truck. Bottom line, up to $12,000 off. It's the bottom line year-end model sale at the global award-winning Best of the Best Team Nissan. Rush to Team Nissan now.
Come work for an innovative company that pushes the boundaries of connectivity, entertainment, and information. Spectrum, America's fastest growing TV, internet, and voice provider, is looking for individuals who are interested in making the most out of their career. Employees enjoy full benefits, best-in-class 401k, and complimentary services. Spectrum has a wide range of positions available, so find the right opportunity for you. Just go to jobs.spectrum.com and apply today.
You're saying today that the president has directed you to make the issue of election meddling a priority. How do you explain the disconnect between what you are saying, his advisors, and what the president has said about this issue?
I'm not in a position to either understand fully or talk about what happened at Helsinki.
Look at that. Joining us now is Evan McMullen, a former CIA operative and former independent presidential candidate, and Neera Tanden is back with us. Evan, let's start with you. What does it take for that sort of scene to happen on Thursday, for all of those national security heads to come out to the press briefing room and address not just the reporters there, but the general public? What does it take to get them to do that?
Well, I think first of all, you have these national security leaders who genuinely understand that this kind of thing needs to be communicated to the American people. The American people need to understand what kind of threat we're facing so that they can support our leaders as they hopefully do the right thing, or elect leaders in Congress specifically who will do the right thing, who will support sanctions that are strong enough to deter Russia. But I think what's also happening, my read of it anyway, is that as we get closer to the midterms and as it becomes clear to the American people that the Russians did attack our election and did use the Republican Party, especially through its candidate, Donald Trump, to make that attack, and that now the Republican Party is sort of lying down on the job, or at least its elected leaders, I think there's got to be increasing pressure to show the American people that the administration on some level is trying to do the right thing, and that's why I think those national security leaders end up on that podium in the press room, and even though 6 hours later the president gets up on stage and says the whole thing's a hoax. He's talking to his base, his most fervent, loyal base. That's the message they want to hear. He's keeping them in the dark and brainwashed, whereas the Republicans who are concerned by Donald Trump's open betrayal of the country in Helsinki are saying, okay, well, maybe part of the administration is doing the right thing. Maybe I can still vote Republican.
Do you think they're in the dark and brainwashed?
I think it's time for us to start thinking about some of the base being brainwashed. There's this QAnon, this conspiracy theory. The conspiracy theories on the far right are growing and spreading and becoming less a part of just the fringe discourse and working their way into the mainstream. And actually that's been the case for a while, but it's becoming more the case. And in my mind, that's a piece of brainwashing. I mean, we're talking about people existing in alternative information environments that have no bearing on fact or reality or reason, and that's where some of his base is.
Neera, it is almost like there are two administrations, one led by grown-ups, like those national security advisors you just saw, and the other one led by Donald Trump, a man who wants to bear hug the guy who attacked our democracy.
Yeah, I mean, just think about the fact that we had all those leaders of our intelligence community, leader of the FBI, the DNI, all walk out and make the statements they did. And of course, it's not just their work. They are basing this on the work of hundreds, if not thousands, of intelligence people and working in the CIA, the FBI, etc., gathering intelligence about the threat our country faces right now. And then hours later, Donald Trump continues with the language of a Russian hoax. Just weeks after Vladimir Putin said that he wanted Trump to win, and Donald Trump said that he basically believed Vladimir Putin over the people arrayed at the White House podium yesterday. And I think the reality of this is that if you are concerned about the threat that exists from Russia, not just what they've done in the past, but what they are doing today and what they will do in the future, you cannot count on the President of the United States. And we have an extraordinary moment where there's really two administrations. There's the President Trump himself and then the intelligence community, and they have really lined up just as opposed to him on this fundamental issue.
So the question needs to be asked, is the administration concerned about sending mixed messages to Russia? Here's what one of these strategic communications director told Kristen Welker.
President Trump last night at his rally said this Russia investigation is a hoax. Doesn't that undercut what happened at the
Not at all. I think that we've made it very clear the president last May in 2017, directed the administration to be tough, strengthen and review cybersecurity measures.
Are you concerned, though, that it sends a mixed message to Russia?
No, not at all. Not at all. The only one who's making this a mixed message is the media.
It's only the media, Neera.
I mean, this is the talking point every single day, which is that we are all supposed to just basically ignore what Donald Trump says. I mean, Sarah Huckabee Sanders says this on occasion, that the White House strategy, communication strategy, is to just actually, the broad public, except for their base, is supposed to ignore what the president says. But his base is supposed to take everything he says literally. I mean, it's ridiculous and outrageous that we have this kind of thing happening about, not a partisan battle or just two sides of a debate on taxes or something. This is about America's national security. This is about our elections and democracy. And the fact that the White House, the President of the United States cannot make the statement about the threat that exists from Russia is ridiculous. And shows that it makes the people think they have something on him.
Let me ask this question of you, Evan. Can the intelligence community, can our agencies effectively push back and protect us against Russian interference, cyber warfare, if the president's not on board?
They can do a lot, but they can't do enough. What really needs to happen here is deterrence, because we're never going to be able to block every cyber intrusion and disinformation campaign. I mean, you just can't do it. So you have to deter. And deterrence, the best vehicle for that is through sanctions. That has to be done by Congress, which is why the midterms are so critical.
Evan McMullen, always good to see you. My Friday night date is near at hand, and thank you as well. Tonight's last word is next.
Dear Stephen, at our quarterly meeting, you asked me, when was the last time I had a physical? It wasn't a question I expected from my financial guy, but I took your advice and got checked. The doc found a small tumor, but they caught it early, and things are looking good. So this is me saying, thank you. Sincerely, Brian.
I was looking for somebody who wanted to find love. At eHarmony, we ask you questions so that we can match you for a lasting connection.
I found my person.
I really found my true love on eHarmony.
eHarmony.com, the #1 trusted dating site. Start for free today.
There's an app that lets you order from all your favorite local restaurants. So you can order this, or even this. Order from over 80,000 restaurants nationwide, right to your door. Grubhub, restaurants you love, delivered.
Ordinary stains say they can do the job, but Bare Premium Stain can weather any weather. Overall #1 rated, weathers it all. Find our most advanced formula exclusively at the Home Depot.
Summer can be full of joy and surprises.
Everyone happy?
Yes! Do something!
But WeatherTech's got you covered with laser-measured floor liners, seat protectors, cargo liners, and a full line of automotive accessories. Order yours today at WeatherTech.com. The ultimate protection for your vehicle.
If theft were this frequent, you'd definitely do something about it. Well, it is. An identity is stolen every 2 seconds. And you can do something about it with Experian. See if your social security number, phone, and email are at risk with a free dark web triple scan at Experian.com/scan. Experian. Identity protection has a new identity. When the day turns to night and the shadows grow long, the ADT yard sign stands watch over your home and family. With 140 years of tested, trusted, 24/7 protection. Now get our lowest rate for fast response monitoring at just $28.99 a month. About $1 a day for ADT, America's most trusted home security provider. Call or go to ADT.com and try risk-free with our 6-month money-back guarantee.
Fruits and veggies are essential to your health, but it's tough to get enough of their nutrients. New One A Day with Nature's Medley is the only complete multivitamin with antioxidants from one total serving of fruits and veggies. Try New One A Day with Nature's Medley.
Monday, Spike Lee, the visionary filmmaker, sits down with Lester Holt to talk about the Black Klansman and to meet the real-life detective Ron Stallworth, who infiltrated the KKK. Monday on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
I mean, I guess if we were playing poker, we say put up or shut up. What do you got?
Oh, you better hope you're not playing poker. Because your client can't keep a casino running.
That's tonight's last word. I'm Katie Turner. The 11th hour with Brian Williams starts right now.
Tonight, Donald Trump at his New Jersey golf club after a wild ride of a week, moving the goalposts on collusion, calling for an end to the Mueller investigation, and a full-on assault on the media, all while his own team beats the drum warning of the Russia threat. Plus, new developments in the Paul Manafort case, the testimony today that compelled his wife to leave the courtroom. And after another stunning week in this presidency, we'll ask a celebrated historian if there's anything to celebrate in the history that we are witnessing. The 11th hour on a Friday night begins now. Well, good evening once again from our NBC News headquarters here in New York. Day 561 this was of the Trump administration. And the end of another week brings a new sign of Robert Mueller's increasing interest in one of Donald Trump's veteran advisors, his friend of 40 years, in fact, Roger Stone. NBC News reporting tonight that according to a source with direct knowledge, a member of Mueller's team met with a Stone associate named Kristen Davis. She first came to prominence when the New York City tabloids nicknamed her the Manhattan Madam after she said she provided prostitutes to the rich and powerful, including a former governor of New York. The NBC News report tonight reads, quote, Davis said in July that the Mueller representative who contacted her lawyer asked if she would accept a subpoena or if the FBI would need to serve it to her. She said her lawyer called the representative back to say she would accept it. Davis said she had worked for Stone for many years and other people who worked with Stone had already been subpoenaed. Today, Roger Stone released this statement, quote, Kristen Davis is a longtime friend and associate of mine. I am the godfather to her 2-year-old son. She knows nothing about alleged Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other impropriety related to the 2016 election, which I thought was the subject of this probe. Davis is one of at least 3 Stone associates said to be on Mueller's radar. The special counsel reportedly remains very interested in that June 2016 Trump Tower meeting, wants to talk to the Russian singer who helped set it up. Reports this week of a new angle in the Russia investigation, the ongoing negotiations over a possible Mueller interview, and the trial of Trump's former campaign chairman, let's not forget, all seem to be coinciding with the president's escalating attacks. He is all over Twitter. He held 2 rallies in just the space of the last 4 days. He's got another one in Ohio tomorrow. Last night, he managed to discredit the Russia inquiry while mocking critics of his meeting with Putin.
In Helsinki, I had a great meeting with Putin. We discussed everything. I had a great meeting. We got along really well. By the way, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. That's a really good thing. Now, we're being hindered by the Russian hoax. It's a hoax, okay?
Earlier this week, he wrote, quote, Attorney General Jeff Sessions should stop this rigged witch hunt right now. Bob Mueller's totally conflicted, and his 17 angry Democrats that are doing his dirty work are a disgrace to the USA. His concern about Paul Manafort's financial crimes trial comes out in this posting, quote, Paul Manafort worked for Ronald Reagan, Bob Dole, and many other highly prominent and respected political leaders. He worked for me for a very short time. Why didn't government tell me he was under investigation? These old charges have nothing to do with collusion, a hoax. But Trump reserves some of his sharpest attacks for his critics and the news media.
Even these people back here, these horrible, horrendous people, even these people back there stand, look at it. It looks like the Academy Awards. There's so many. You ever see this? Let's say I'm running against Pocahontas or Crazy Bernie. I tell you, I got to hand it to Bernie. I saw him up there the other day. That hair is getting whiter and whiter. I had Obamacare done, except one guy at 2 o'clock in the morning went in and said, you know who the new leader is? Maxine Waters. Very low IQ. Low IQ. They can make anything bad because they are the fake, disgusting news.
On that note, let's bring in our leadoff panel for a Friday night. Jonathan Allen, NBC News national political reporter and co-author of the bestseller Shattered about the Hillary campaign. Joe Weinbank's attorney and former assistant Watergate special counsel. Jonathan Lemire, White House reporter for the Associated Press. If it's Friday, it must be New Jersey. And Jackie Combs, White House editor for the Los Angeles Times. Welcome to you all, Mr. Lemire, covering the vacationing president. I'd like to begin with you. By the way, as long as presidents have vacationed, White Houses have rushed in to say, oh, no, this is a working vacation. So calling this a working vacation is one of the most traditional things this White House has ever done. Having established that, you reported just days ago, Jonathan, this president was in a very dark place. Is he in any brighter confines, even including the fact that he likes rallies like that for what we just saw?
Hey, Brian. Well, he is in one of the nation's greatest states tonight. And he won't be here for long, though, as he heads back to Ohio tomorrow for a rally, as you said. Last night, though, when he was in Pennsylvania, I think betrayed where his mood was. Though he certainly was at times jovial and sort of jocular with the crowd, he had a lot of venom, shall we say, towards the media. And it came, of course, just hours after his entire national security staff finally did what so many people have wanted to hear for a long time, to sort of chastise Russia for their election interference in 2016 and outline steps to prevent them from doing it again, while sounding the alarm that, yes, this threat is still very real from Moscow, and it should be taken seriously. Of course, what happens later, just 6 hours later in northeast Pennsylvania, the president downplays it, suggests the whole thing is a hoax, and then turns withering scorn on the media that was there, suggesting that we were treating him unfairly, sort of reappropriating the idea of fake news, no longer as his criticism of a report that he thinks is inaccurate, but rather just a report that he thinks is unfair or, unkind to him, and therefore, in labeling us sort of his enemy. Though he didn't use enemy of the state yesterday, he certainly described us as, disgusting, horrible people. This is the White House, as you said, is suggesting this is a working vacation. He made a series of phone calls today to lawmakers, the press pool. We didn't lay eyes on him. But he'll be back out there again tomorrow. And a day after behaving himself on Twitter like he did today, I think we all expect that once again, it won't just be the news media in his crosshairs, but it will be this Russia probe, which has followed him throughout, whether he's in the White House or here in Bedminster.
John Allen, you covered last night's tour de force in Wilkes-Barre. What did you see and note in the arena that perhaps wasn't obvious on television?
Well, I was one of the horribles. I guess it rhymes with deplorables, the difference being the news media is just trying to report the facts. I can only imagine what the president thinks of the people who are actually opposing him politically. This rally was a pretty boisterous one, and I think Jonathan was absolutely right. Having been at a rally in Tampa earlier this week, the president was pretty pumped up, pretty jazzed up, and pretty venomous, as Jonathan said, compared to how he was earlier in the week. He's obviously feeling a lot of pressure, but one of the things I noticed yesterday is he really emphasized immigration in this particular speech. He was in a part of the country that has seen a big influx of Hispanic immigrants over the course of the last decade or so. It's a big issue for his base. He went to all of those, and he played some of them earlier, some of those greatest hits, whether it's Maxine Waters or Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer, certainly referencing some of the other greatest hits. And what's important about that, Brian, is as he's ramping up for the midterms, he's not really trying to expand the Republican base, but really just fire up his own supporters and get them energized. He has seen a period in his presidency, throughout his presidency, that's been very static in terms of approval rating. So if his party's going to win in the midterm elections, if it's going to preserve its majorities in the Senate and the House, it's going to be on the basis of every last Republican turning out, and particularly every last base supporter. So I think we can expect to hear more and more of what we heard last night.
Jackie Combs, you've covered a story or two in the pantheon of bad weeks for Donald Trump, noting that this one started with him telling the AG he should end the Mueller investigation. And just yesterday, after his intelligence community came out, talked about the Russia threat, he went out and called it a hoax in Wilkes-Barre. Where does this rank in the short history of bad weeks of the Trump presidency?
I actually think it's no worse, really, than some of the worst. But when you look at it substantively, it was really important, because when you think about it, here we are, more than a year and a half after he's taken office, and we're coming up on 2 years since he was elected. The unanimous consensus of the intelligence community of this country is that we were attacked by our biggest adversary, Russia. And for the first time in the past week, he presided over a meeting, the first time a meeting of his National Security Council. It lasted somewhere between under an hour, maybe just a half hour, before he went off to Bedminster to his golf club for last weekend. So this week, because the administration feels so on the defensive that they're not doing enough, we're just 3 months away from a midterm election where the intelligence community is saying that Russia is continuing to try to subvert our elections. They bring 5 top national security officials before the press court in the briefing room to say something the president himself has never said publicly. Now, that was a tableau that should have been played out in the East Room of the White House, perhaps, with the president himself as the maestro at the mic. Instead, the next we see the president is, as your guests have said, as you've said, was there in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, before a crowd of his adoring supporters, in which he's calling it a hoax. It's a wonder to me that some of these people haven't resigned, but I think it comes back to the original sentiment that a lot of people had joining this administration. They're doing this for their country. They're doing it to, in effect, I mean, it's not going too far to say to protect this country from the president.
Jill, Jackie just said a series of really important things, and now we need to know what it looks like from a lawyer's perspective. If you were Rudy Giuliani or Jay Sekulow or the White House counsel or the Raskins, attorneys at law, how would you view this past week?
I would be very concerned. I think that the president's actions have been more obstruction. There's no question that his tweet saying Attorney General Sessions should stop the investigation is an active act of obstruction of justice. I also think that his tweet that the hoax and the Manafort trial, saying that there's no collusion there and the trial's a hoax, could be seen as jury tampering. He is clearly playing to his base and doing everything he can to undermine the Russia investigation. He has done nothing to protect the country, and I think it's a serious problem for him from a legal perspective. It's really bad.
Jonathan Lemire, as we say in New Jersey, just for a little bon mot, the staff of the 4 p.m. hour put together a collection. This is not necessarily everything, a collection of some of the things that were said in Wilkes-Barre that are flatly not true. We'll watch it together, talk about it on the other side.
Highways would take 21 years to get approved. We have it down to 2 years, and it's going to be 1 year very shortly. U.S. Steel is opening up 7 plants. I'll tell you what, Russia's very unhappy that Trump won. That I can tell. I raised $44 billion last year, and I don't know if you know, NATO funding was going down. Chain migration. And this was the Schumer deal. Schumer wanted this. Republicans just passed the biggest tax cuts in the history of our country.
So, Jonathan Lemire, what is the White House process when the president goes out?
The president has a pretty unconventional relationship with the truth, Brian. And I think that for the most part, the White House process resembles this. I think that they try to clean up some of this stuff, but they also know there's a sense around the building, and not just White House aides, but those in the Trump orbit who he talks to late at night, that every so often the president just needs to blow off some steam. Sometimes it happens on Twitter, sometimes it happens at rallies. But let's also remember, this is something that predates his political career. From his days as a real estate developer in New York, where he was recording the tabloids and looking to make himself a celebrity, he would sort of push his own version of the truth. He would lie to reporters, he would lie in public, and he would do it so often, it seemed as if he was convincing himself that it was real. And we're seeing that since the moment he came down that escalator at Trump Tower 3 years ago, that a lot of his supporters are willing to go with him. We see the poll numbers, how they trust Republicans who support Trump, trust him far more than, say, the news media. And the most perhaps telling of those, that reel you just played, is the one where he suggested that Vladimir Putin did not want him to win. Let's remember, just a couple weeks ago in Helsinki, Vladimir Putin was asked that very question. Who did you want to win in 2016? And he said Donald Trump. So, and this is now an argument the president has made on Twitter, suggesting, well, if there is election interference, maybe it's the Russians helping the Democrats. And that just goes to show you, not only can he not be taken at face value at some of these rallies, but this is hovering over him, the whole idea of Russia, and that it colors everything he tries to do. And as the Mueller probe seems to be inching closer and closer to him and his family, I expect that these sort of unpredictable moments and the pressure to end the investigation are only going to accelerate.
And John Allen, as we watch that, we watch the president's position on all things Russia hardening sharply.
Hey, I'm going to bounce from GT Online. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good weekend. I'll be somewhere.
Might be doing so in 2018. They obviously felt like their message wasn't getting out. They banded together, went to the White House briefing room, gave this stunning sort of condemnation of Russia continuing to have this ongoing effort to undermine American democracy. And then you have the President of the United States split screen there in Wilkes-Barre going, never mind what my top aides are saying, never mind that it's all of this is disrupting my relationship with Putin, who didn't want me to win. And of course, for those of us that were in the room in Helsinki when Putin was asked that, you don't have to speak a lot of Russian to know that the answer to the question of did you want Trump to win was basically da. You know, I mean, Putin was just like, yes, 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 I wanted Trump to win. You know, the lies are, they mount up. It's so hard, Brian, when you're in the room at those rallies to count them. They're coming so fast. You know, you showed several clips. There must have been another half dozen at least. I know in one case he said that Bob Casey, the sitting senator there, wants to abolish ICE. Not true.